Imagine. You wake up under a hide blanket. The air bites your face, your breath hangs like smoke in the dark. For a long moment you lie still, half dreaming, listening. The wind moans outside, not like the wind that slips through city streets, but like something alive, ancient, prowling across a frozen sea of grass. It scrapes against the teepee walls like claws. The buffalo hide covering flexes, creaks softly, and you feel the cold reaching through the seams, curious and patient. Your eyelashes are rimed with frost. Your fingers ache. And still, you're alive. Outside, the night stretches for 1,000 silent miles. No trees, no shelter, just endless white under a sky that never seems to end. The Great Plains in midwinter, a place so vast it feels like the world has forgotten its edges. The snow drifts in long ripples, sculpted by the wind into frozen waves, and the stars look close enough to touch. You think you'd survive a night out here? The truth is, you wouldn't last till dawn. But they did. The Lakota, the Blackfoot, the Comanche, the Cheyenne, people of wind and firelight, who knew how to live where the cold itself was a teacher. Where the earth could kill you, and yet, somehow, it provided everything you needed to live. Now listen, really listen. Beneath the hull of the storm, there's another sound, the soft pop and sigh of a fire at the teepee's center. The smell of smoke and buffalo fat, faint and comforting. The shadows of people move around the low flame, slow, graceful, unhurried. A mother adjusts the hide over her child. A man stirs embers with a stick of bone. The glow flickers across faces calm and unafraid. Inside this small circle of light, life endures. You shift slightly under the blanket. The air inside the teepee feels thick with breath, warm with life. Outside, the wind claws. Inside, the world breathes. Every creak of leather, every whisper of movement feels like a heartbeat. The teepee walls tremble, then hold. The fire murmurs, smoke rising up through the opening above, a column of warmth and prayer. This, right here, is survival, not the desperate kind, but the learned kind. The ancient kind. Survival that has been practiced, refined, and perfected for centuries. You draw your hand along the floor beneath you and feel something soft. Grass. Layers of woven reeds and dry stalks beneath thick hides. The cold of the earth has been tamed here, turned into comfort. The hides above you aren't just walls. They're a living skin, breathing, shifting, bending with the storm. The people who built this place didn't fight the wind. They listened to it. They learned its moods, its songs, its patterns. Outside, snow swirls across the plains like drifting smoke. Wolves move in the distance, their howls long and hollow. The horses stand huddled together, their breaths steaming in the night, their flanks dusted white with frost. They don't panic. They know the rhythm of this cold, the same way their riders do. The fire crackles again, and for a moment, the orange light catches on something. A painted shield, a set of beadwork, a child's small moccasin drying by the fire. Every object here has a purpose. Every shape, every angle, every choice is born from 1,000 winters like this one. If you step outside, just for a moment, the cold hits you like a blow. The air cuts through your clothes, steals the warmth from your lungs. The snow is deep, whispering under your boots. The stars wheel overhead in silence. The moon throws silver across the prairie, and in that light, the land looks endless. Beautiful. Terrifying. You pull the hide tighter around your shoulders. The teepee glows faintly behind you, a warm pulse against the dark, a single heartbeat in a sleeping world. From a distance, the cluster of teepees looks like a constellation fallen to earth, each one flickering with its own flame. The people inside them are sleeping now, wrapped in furs and family, their dreams stitched into the rhythm of the wind. Their survival isn't an act of heroism. It's harmony. They don't conquer the cold, they become part of it. For them, the Great Plains in winter isn't an enemy. It's a teacher. The lesson? Respect. Adaptation. balance. You can almost hear the old words, not shouted, not written, but spoken softly beside the fire, passed from one generation to the next. The wind will always win if you fight it. But if you walk with it, it will carry you. The fire crackles again. Sparks rise into the smoke hole, drift into the night like tiny stars going home. And the cold outside, still vast, still merciless, seems to pause. Just for a moment. As if acknowledging the warmth within. The plains sleep. The people dream. And the story, their story, begins. The fire burns lower. You can feel its warmth thinning, sinking into the woven grass beneath your palms. The hides above you shift gently in the wind, sighing like a giant's breath. Someone stirs beside you, the rustle of furs, the soft sound of a child's dream. The storm still howls, but fainter now, as if its rage has moved on across the frozen horizon. Dawn creeps slowly into the teepee, pale and uncertain. At first it is just a gray light seeping through the seams, soft as smoke. Then, as the minutes pass, the darkness begins to lift. You see the faint curve of a painted pole, the glint of a flint knife laid beside the hearth, the silhouette of a woman bent over embers, coaxing them back to life. Her breath is steady, patient. She moves as though the cold is an old friend. The sound of her scraping kindling fills the small space. You smell it before you see it, the first curl of burning sage, sharp and clean, mingling with the sweetness of smoldering pine. This is morning on the plains. Not the rush of alarms or the hum of engines, but a slow awakening, shaped by the rhythm of the wind and the light. Outside, the camp begins to stir. You hear the snort of horses, the thud of hooves stamping frost from the ground. A dog barks once, short and sharp. Then another answers. The day has begun. You push back the hide flap and step out into the cold. The world hits you in a single, perfect breath, air so cold it feels like glass in your lungs, sky so wide it seems to lean down and look you in the eye. The storm has passed, leaving the land transformed. Every blade of grass glitters with frost. The snow stretches to the horizon in ripples of blue and white, like a frozen ocean. The sun, low and golden, rises from the east and spills light across the camp. Dozens of teepees stand in a broad circle, their tops breathing thin trails of smoke. They face the southeast, toward the sunrise. Always the sunrise. Because the people here know, you never face the north wind. You greet the day instead. You stand still for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the brightness. The silence of the plains is deceptive, it hums. It has a texture. Beneath the quiet, you can hear the faint clicking of ice as it melts from hides, the distant cry of a hawk, the rhythm of footsteps crunching snow. A man passes by, wrapped in a thick buffalo robe. His face is calm, his hair tied with sinew and beads. He nods to you once, not as a stranger, but as someone sharing the same morning. Behind him, his breath hangs in the air like steam. You follow his gaze. Beyond the camp, riders are already out checking the horses, their figures small against the horizon. The animals move slowly, heads low, steam rising from their nostrils. Each one is tied near a pole set deep in the ground, shielded by snow walls built from packed drifts, small forts against the wind. Every detail has purpose. Every motion here is knowledge passed through generations. You realize something quietly profound. No one hurries. There is no panic, no fumbling with frostbitten fingers. The cold isn't feared, it's negotiated with. The Lakota say the wind is alive, that it has moods, that it listens. And so they live as if being watched, gently, respectfully. In the distance, smoke rises from another cluster of teepees. The scent carries on the air, sage, cedar, pine, the same smells that once drifted across these plains centuries ago, long before railroads or barbed wire or fences. The people who lived here were not few. The Sioux, Lakota, Dakota, Blackfoot, Comanche, Arapaho, Kiowa, each with their own names for the wind, their own songs for snow. Together, they belonged to a landscape that shaped their hearts as much as their hands. They were people of movement, people of sky. Nomads, but not wanderers. Every journey had meaning, every trail was memory. They followed the great herds of buffalo across the plains, moving with the seasons, never staying long enough to wound the earth. You can almost see it, the long procession of riders cresting a ridge at sunset, hundreds of horses moving like a single heartbeat, each laden with poles and hides. Behind them, the sky is a painting of fire, gold fading into violet. Ahead, the promise of water, grass, shelter. And yet, to outsiders, this life looked fragile. How could anyone live like this, without walls, without towns, without permanence? But permanence is an illusion. The people of the wind understood that better than anyone. Their home was not a place. It was a way of being. You kneel near the snow and scoop up a handful. It glitters between your fingers, catching the sunlight. To you, it's just cold, just frozen water. But to them, it was alive, a voice of the sky returning to the ground. The snow fed the rivers. The rivers fed the grass. The grass fed the buffalo. And the buffalo fed everything: bodies, tools, spirit, stories. When a people learn to see the sacred in the ordinary, survival becomes something deeper. A group of children runs past, their laughter sharp and bright in the cold. They chase each other through the drifts, their breath puffing in clouds. A woman watches them from near her tipi, smiling. Her hair glints in the sunlight, black as obsidian. In her hands she holds a wooden bowl of snow, melting it near the fire to make water for the morning meal. Nearby, an elder sits cross-legged in the snow, his robe open to the waist. His skin is weathered like tanned hide. He closes his eyes, raises his hands toward the sun, and breathes. Steam rises from his shoulders. He's offering thanks, not in words, but in stillness. That's what they do here. They give thanks for the cold, for the wind, for the snow, for the simple fact of waking up alive. You begin to understand. These people aren't surviving despite the cold. They're surviving through it, shaped by it, strengthened by it. The cold is not their enemy. It is their sculptor. The wind that cuts your skin, it teaches you to listen. The snow that blinds your eyes, it teaches you to feel. The hunger, the silence, the endless horizon, they all teach patience. You hear a drum. Soft, distant. It echoes across the camp, steady as a heartbeat. Someone is singing. The words are low, almost lost to the wind, but the melody carries. It rises and falls like the land itself, gentle, repeating, eternal. The people move with it. They prepare food, tend fires, mend hides. No one speaks loudly. The day unfolds the way the plains do, slowly, without rush, without waste. As the sun climbs higher, you see how light changes the world here. Morning frost melts into glittering drops that cling to every blade of grass. The teepees shimmer, their hides glowing golden. The horses shake their manes, snow scattering like sparks. For a moment, the world feels alive in every direction. And you realize, this is not wilderness. Not in the way you were taught to think of it. This is home. Ordered. Known. Understood through generations of observation. The people of the wind didn't live on the land, they lived with it. Even their language mirrors the rhythm of nature, verbs for wind, for thawing snow, for the first breath of a newborn calf. Words built like rivers, flowing, changing, never static. The elder opens his eyes and looks toward you, as if he's heard your thoughts. He smiles, a slow, knowing smile, and points toward the circle of teepees. You follow his gaze and see them differently now. Not as scattered shelters, but as a single living thing, a constellation of warmth and breath and memory. Each one belongs to a family, but together they form a tribe. People of the wind. People of the sky. People who learn to live in rhythm with the heartbeat of the world. A child's laugh echoes again, high and clear. The elder chuckles softly and murmurs something in Lakota. You don't understand the words, but the meaning comes through the tone. Life goes on. And in that moment you feel it, this strange, fragile miracle of existence out here, on this sea of frozen grass. The wind rises again, playful now, tugging at your hair. It smells of pine and smoke and snow. The clouds drift east, the sun gleams hard and cold, and the plains breathe beneath it all, endless, sacred, alive. You turn back toward the camp, and in the distance, you see the smoke curling upward once more, tracing the breath of a people who never tried to conquer the land, only to belong to it. The wind whistles between the teepees, and you hear the faint rattle of wooden poles, the whisper of hides moving like lungs. The fire in the center of the nearest lodge flares again, orange against the white day. And so, slowly, naturally, we move closer, to that fire, to the heart of their world. The teepee awaits, its smoke rising like a song. And within it, the story continues. A home that breathes. The snow squeaks beneath your boots as you walk. The light has changed again, higher now, sharp as glass, painting the world in blue and silver. The wind moves in long sighs across the open plain, and every sound carries the creak of poles, the soft laugh of a child, the low murmur of someone singing to the horses. Ahead, smoke drifts upward from a dozen teepees, thin, gray ribbons twisting into the sky. Each one sways gently in the breeze, alive, responsive, breathing. You draw closer, feeling the warmth in the air thicken, tasting the faint trace of ash and pine. At first glance, they seem simple. Cones of hide and wood, arranged in a perfect circle, each one facing the same direction, southeast, toward the rising sun. But as you step nearer, you see the genius hidden in every curve. The teepee isn't just a shelter. It's a conversation with the wind. The poles rise high, their tips bound together like a hand holding prayer. Around them, the buffalo hides are stretched tight, stitched edge to edge with sinew that gleams faintly where it catches the light. The structure bends, never breaks. It yields to the gusts that slam against it, channeling the force upward and away. You can feel it, how the wind moves around the teepee like water flowing around a stone. It's not a wall against nature. It's an agreement with it. A woman emerges from one of the lodges, brushing snow from her shoulders. Her breath clouds in front of her face. She carries a bundle of sticks, tied neatly with rawhide, and nods to you as she passes. Her eyes are calm, her steps steady. She disappears into another teepee, pushing aside the flap with practiced ease. You catch a glimpse of light inside, golden, flickering, pulsing with life. You follow. Inside, everything changes. The wind fades. The cold softens. The light shifts to a warm orange glow that spills across curved walls. It feels alive, as if the air itself hums. The woman sets her bundle by the fire pit at the center. The ground beneath her feet is covered in woven mats and soft hides. The smoke hole above breathes in rhythm with the wind outside, opening wider when the gusts ease, closing slightly when they strengthen. Every movement of the air, every breath of smoke, is part of a dialogue between earth and sky. She adds 2 pieces of pine to the coals. The fire sighs, sending sparks upward. The smoke curls through the air, drawn toward the vent above, then swept away into the endless blue beyond the hide walls. The whole teepee exhales. You sit quietly, watching. The heat from the fire settles against your skin, slow and steady. The hides radiate a soft warmth of their own, touched by sunlight seeping through their seams. The scent of tan leather, wood smoke, and sage mingles, creating something that feels both ancient and clean. The woman hums as she works. She moves around the fire with easy familiarity, adjusting poles, checking cords, smoothing a patch where the hide meets the ground. Every motion is deliberate. The teepee isn't a fixed structure, it's alive, constantly tended. There's no hammer, no nail, no rigid joint. Only balance and understanding. The poles, 12 to 20 in all, form the bones, slender but strong, usually pine or cedar, stripped and smoothed by hand. They're set in a spiral, anchored deep into the earth. The hides, buffalo, sometimes elk, are wrapped around them in layers, their seams overlapping like scales, stitched with sinew that tightens when wet and seals against the wind. At the base, stones and snow pack the edges, holding warmth in, cold out. You realize that the teepee's strength isn't in its size or thickness. It's in its shape, its perfect, breathing symmetry. When the wind howls from the north, the flaps on that side are closed, tight as eyelids. When the air softens, they open to draw in light and life. The top smoke flaps act like lungs, adjusting constantly. A rope and two slender poles allow them to be opened or shut from inside. One tug, and the smoke clears, another, and the heat stays trapped. You tilt your head back and look upward. The smoke hole forms a circle of daylight, edged by the faint shimmer of rising heat. Above it, the sky looks impossibly vast. Through that opening, the teepee breathes, prays, and connects, earth below, sky above, fire in between. You understand, suddenly, why they say the teepee is sacred. It mirrors the universe. The floor is the earth, steady, generous. The poles are the trees, reaching skyward. The smoke hole is the heavens. The fire is the sun. And the people gathered here are the heart. You look around. There's no wasted space, no clutter. Everything has purpose. Against one wall, wooden racks hold bundles wrapped in hide, food, tools, clothing. A cradle board leans beside them, decorated with beads and porcupine quills that catch the firelight. Opposite the entrance lies a space kept clear and clean, the place of honor. Above it hangs a painted shield, a bison charging through snow, its breath rendered in crimson swirls. Each painting has meaning, a memory of hunts, prayers, dreams. The teepee is not just shelter, it's a living diary. Every mark, every stitch tells a story. The woman finishes tending the fire and sits cross-legged, motioning for you to join her. She offers you a small bowl made of horn, filled with warm broth. The smell is rich and earthy, bison, roots, herbs. You take a sip. The heat fills your chest, spreading outward until the cold is only a memory. Outside, the wind sighs again, but softer now, as though content to pass by. For a long moment, there's only the crackle of flames. Then, through the thin walls, you hear voices, men returning from the ridge, laughing low, the creak of leather, the muffled whinny of a horse. The teepee trembles gently as the door flap lifts, and a man enters. He ducks his head, snow dusting his braids, his cheeks red from the cold. He greets the woman with quiet words, a language that rolls like water, smooth and musical. She smiles, handing him a fur to warm his shoulders. The man sits beside the fire. Steam rises from his clothing. His eyes catch yours for a moment. He nods, not curiosity, but acknowledgement. You're here, part of this circle now, and in this space, everyone shares the same fire, the same warmth. He reaches toward the wall and adjusts one of the poles, just slightly. The draft changes. The smoke clears a little more. Even in silence, the teepee responds. It is said that a well-made teepee can withstand the fiercest winter storm. The wind may scream, but it can't find purchase. Snow piles high, but the conical walls shed it easily. Inside, the air stays clear, the fire steady, the people safe. And when the seasons turn and the earth softens, the same home that shielded them through winter transforms again. The hides are loosened, the poles gathered, the structure collapsed and loaded onto a horse or travois. In less than an hour, the home becomes a bundle ready to travel. The genius lies in its impermanence. To live with the land, you must be able to move with it. The teepee teaches this truth quietly: nothing is fixed. Not the camp, not the weather, not even the heart. Everything changes, and in that change, there is freedom. The man speaks softly to the woman. She nods, rising to pour water into a leather bag hanging near the entrance. The water hisses as it hits a hot stone in the fire, releasing a puff of steam. For a moment, the air smells of earth after rain. You realize that this rhythm, this constant adjustment, is the essence of life here. Balance, always. When it's too cold, add wood. Too hot, lift the flap. Too still, open the vent. Too smoky, shift a pole. The teepee breathes as they breathe. It's harmony in architecture. You close your eyes. The warmth presses close, the crackle of fire steady as a heartbeat. The hides creak softly in the wind. You can almost hear the pulse of centuries, voices whispering in the smoke, hands stitching hides, children laughing in sleep. When you open your eyes again, the world outside has changed color. Afternoon light filters through the walls, glowing amber. Shadows of passing figures flicker across the curved surfaces like ghosts of memory. The teepee glows from within, a lantern in a sea of snow. You understand now why travelers once said that seeing a camp of teepees at dusk was like watching the earth breathe fire. Each lodge, a living flame, each flame, a prayer against the cold. You rise slowly, nodding to your hosts, and step back into the daylight. The cold greets you again, sharp and clean. The air smells of pine and smoke and distant river ice. Around you, the teepees stand tall, their shapes cutting against the sky like mountains made of hide and light. The wind moves among them with the grace of something respected, not feared. You can hear it whispering between the seams, brushing across the poles, lifting the flaps, testing, speaking, playing. The teepees answer with creaks and sighs, as though the entire camp is alive and listening. And as you watch, you realize it is. Each lodge breathes. Each flame inside beats like a heart. Together, they form one living organism, the people, the fire, the hides, the wind, the endless plain. You stand for a long time, watching smoke curl toward the sky, and you know, you've stepped inside something perfect. Not complex, not primitive, simply true. A home that endures by yielding. A structure that lives by breathing. The teepee is a lesson written in wood and hide, one that says, to survive the cold, you must live as the wind lives, and remember that strength and softness are not opposites, but partners. The woman's song drifts from behind you again, quiet, wordless. The fire crackles. A hawk circles overhead, its shadow sliding across the snow. The day bends toward evening. The smoke rises straight now, steady in the calm. And within that breath, that balance, that flickering glow of life against the frozen horizon, you begin to feel it. The peace of belonging to the wind. Evening gathers slowly on the plains, as if reluctant to fall. The sun drifts down the sky, bleeding gold into the snow, turning every drift into a field of embers. Smoke from the teepees hangs low, tinted rose by the last light. The wind, once sharp, softens into a hush that feels almost tender. You walk through the camp again, the crunch of snow muffled now under a thin crust of frost. The air smells of wood smoke and cooked meat, faint sweetness from burning sage. Around you, the circle of lodges glows, each a small universe of warmth. You pause beside one that is half open, its flap tied back to reveal the fire within. A man crouches near the entrance, binding a new pole with sinew. The cord glistens as he pulls it tight, his hands moving with the calm precision of someone who has done this more times than he can count. He looks up briefly, nods once, and gestures for you to come closer. His voice, when he speaks, is low and steady. "Every pole has a spirit," he says in English touched with Lakota rhythm. "You choose wrong, the wind will tell you. You choose right, and it will sing." He smiles faintly, taps the wood, and you hear it, the deep, even tone of seasoned pine. You kneel beside him, and he hands you the tool he's using, a blade of polished bone, honed to a perfect edge. The surface of the pole is smooth where he scraped it, stripped of bark, pale against the darkening snow. "The tree was alive yesterday," he says softly. It gave itself for this. There's no boasting in his tone, no pride, only respect. He tells you that each tipi begins long before it's built. Long before the first pole is raised or the first hide stretched. It begins with the forest, often far to the west, where lodgepole pines grow tall and straight. There, the builders walk among the trees in silence, reading the language of growth. They choose carefully, never the tallest, never the youngest. The ones that fall easily to hand, the ones the wind has already spoken to. When the tree falls, they thank it. They strip it clean, dry it in sun and smoke. The poles must be light enough to carry yet strong enough to bear the hides. They become extensions of the human body, tools of endurance, bones of home. He lifts one of the poles and balances it across his shoulders. See how it bends, he says. Too much, it will break. Too stiff, it will not breathe. A tipi must be both. Outside, another man approaches, dragging a fresh hide. He lays it across the snow, where the last of the sunlight hits it, revealing the soft texture of the tanned surface. The color is the same as the land in summer, dust gold, faintly red. Buffalo hide. You crouch to touch it, and it's warmer than you expect, still carrying the faint scent of smoke and fat from the curing. The edges are pierced with small holes, each perfectly spaced. A woman follows with a bundle of sinew cords. She sits beside the hide and begins to stitch, pulling the pieces together into a vast semicircle. Her fingers move quickly, confidently. The sinew gleams wetly in the firelight. As it dries, it will tighten, shrinking the seams until no air can pass through. The process is slow but rhythmic, a kind of song made of movement. You notice something beautiful. The way everyone here works together without words. Each person knows their task. The man scraping poles, the woman sewing hides, the child gathering snow to seal the base once it's raised. The tipi isn't a single person's creation, it's a weaving of many hands, many breaths. The man beside you points to the bundle of finished poles lying in the snow. There are 13, he says. Always the same. They stand like the ribs of a great animal. The 13th, he touches one gently, is the backbone. It goes first, and everything else follows. You watch as they begin to assemble it. 3 poles are tied together near the top, their ends fanning outward. They lift them upright as one body, the trio rising slowly against the reddening sky. The sound of wood on wood echoes, a hollow, ancient rhythm. Then, with deliberate grace, they spread the tripod wide, planting each base in the snow. Around it, the others begin placing poles, each one finding its natural place in the circle. The structure grows like a tree unfolding its branches. The builders move lightly, their silhouettes shifting through the golden haze. The air fills with the quiet music of work, the whisper of sinew tightening, the hiss of snow under boots, the soft creak of bending pine. The man speaks again. The tipi is built from memory. We don't measure, we remember. He gestures for you to look closer. You see that the spacing of poles isn't exact in the way of rulers and blueprints. It's balanced by intuition, by feel. The circle must be perfect not because it's geometric, but because it feels whole. When the frame stands complete, the woman brings the hide covering. The men lift it together, draping it around the poles, adjusting, tugging, smoothing the seams. The hide settles like a great cloak, closing around the frame until only the smoke hole at the top remains open to the heavens. They step back, and suddenly, there it is, a new home, born from air and hands and understanding. The man beside you exhales slowly. A tipi is never only built, he says. It is raised like a child. You look around the circle of completed lodges, their shapes softened by the fading light. Each one slightly different, yet the same in spirit. No 2 poles cut from the same tree, no 2 hides stitched by the same hand. Each is personal. Yet together, they create harmony. The builders begin to decorate the new tipi before night falls. One paints with a brush made from buffalo hair, dipping it into a pot of ochre mixed with animal fat. He works swiftly, tracing shapes that ripple in the dimming light: arrows, circles, stylized bison, the curve of the moon. "These are not just paintings," the woman says quietly. "They are dreams. Each symbol tells a story, a battle survived, a vision seen, a family remembered. The tipi carries memory on its skin, like a living being marked by time. You help them gather stones to weigh down the edges. The rocks are warm from the fire pit, smooth to the touch. As you press them into the snow, you realize you're anchoring more than a shelter, you're grounding a heartbeat. By the time the first stars appear, the work is done. The new lodge stands firm and silent, its smoke hole glowing faintly from within. You step inside. The air smells of fresh pine, warm hide, and the faint sweetness of burning sage. The fire at the center throws light upward, tracing the inner skeleton of poles against the hide, a web of golden lines reaching toward the smoke hole, where a sliver of night sky peers through. The man and woman sit together by the fire now. Their hands rest on their knees, their faces calm, illuminated by flame. You hear them speak softly in their own tongue, words that sound more like breathing than language. You realize that what you've witnessed isn't just architecture, it's philosophy. A tipi is made from materials that return easily to the earth: wood, hide, grass, stone. Nothing wasted, nothing permanent. When they move on, the land will forget the shape within a season. But the wisdom remains. The builders carry it with them in their minds, in their muscle memory. They could lose everything to a storm: tools, horses, firewood, and still, by evening, they would have shelter again. That is freedom. You run your hand along one of the poles. It's smooth and warm, faintly humming with the vibration of the fire. You remember his words: every pole has a spirit. You can almost feel it now, alive, quiet, watching. The fire snaps. A spark leaps upward, spiraling toward the smoke hole, then vanishes into the night. Outside, the cold deepens, but inside, the warmth holds steady. The man looks at you again. "We build with what we have," he says. "But we also build with what we know. And what we know comes from listening, to trees, to wind, to animals, to the earth herself." His gaze drifts to the fire, the light flickering across his face. The white man builds to last forever. We build to live well now. The land does not need our monuments. The truth of that settles in your chest like heat. You think of your own world: walls of concrete, windows sealed tight against the air, houses that never breathe. And you realize how much has been forgotten. Outside, the wind shifts again. The smoke hole flutters, adjusts. The teepee breathes. The woman hums softly, a song that rises and falls with the wind, repeating until it fades into silence. The man lays another log on the fire. The flames stretch upward, painting their faces in gold. You sit with them until the stars outside grow bright and the sky deepens to indigo. The wind has quieted. The snow glows faintly in the moonlight, and all around the camp, teepees shimmer like lanterns in a sea of ice. You realize slowly that you've learned something deeper than construction. You've learned how wisdom itself is built, layer by layer, like hide upon hide, bound by sinew, shaped by wind and experience. Strong not because it resists change, but because it adapts to it. That's what keeps them alive. You step outside once more. The night is utterly still. Smoke rises straight into the sky. The new teepee stands tall beside you, its painted bison gleaming faintly under the moon. Somewhere far off, a wolf calls. Another answers. The sound rolls across the plain like thunder buried in snow. You pull your furs close and look upward. The stars shimmer through the smoke hole of the new lodge, reflecting in your eyes. And you think, the people of this place have built something no storm can destroy. Not just a home. A harmony. You turn back toward the glowing circles of firelight, and the sound of quiet laughter drifts through the cold. The teepee walls sway gently in the wind, breathing, always breathing, and the night around you seems to breathe with them. The wisdom of their construction isn't written in books or carved in stone. It lives here, in the fire's crackle, in the hum of wood and wind, in the silence that follows work done well. And somewhere within that silence, as your breath rises into the cold, you feel the next truth stirring. The fire at the center is waiting to speak. The night deepens. The wind settles into a whisper that brushes over the snow like the slow turning of a great page. The camp lies quiet now, the teepees glowing faintly from within, each a soft lantern in the vast dark. You walk among them, and the silence feels alive, thick with breath and heartbeat. Through the thin walls of hide, you see movement, silhouettes shifting, small gestures of care. A mother's hand tucking a fur around her child, an old man feeding another log to the flames, the lift of smoke curling through the vent above. Every lodge tells the same story in light and shadow. You stop before one where the glow is strongest. The flap is open, welcoming. A voice from within says something low and kind, a few words you can't quite catch but understand in tone. Come in, share the warmth. You duck your head and step inside. The world narrows instantly. The cold vanishes, replaced by heat that wraps around you like a living thing. The air smells of burning pine and roasted meat, sage, and faintly of animal fat, comforting, human, real. The fire burns at the teepee's heart, bright but not wild, its edges low and steady. Its crackle fills the space like music, soft and rhythmic. There are 5 people here, 2 elders, a young man, a woman, and a child curled up in a blanket near the far side. None speak for a while. They don't need to. The sound of the fire says enough. You kneel near the edge of the hearth, your hands hovering toward the heat. The warmth seeps into your skin, through the ache of your fingers, into your bones. You realize then that this is the center of everything, not just the teepee, but life itself. The woman looks at you, her face gentle in the flicker. Without fire, she says softly, the people are only shadows. She gestures toward the flames. We build the lodge around it. We sleep around it. We eat and pray by it. Fire is our heart. You watch the flames climb and fold, licking at the stones that ring the hearth. Those stones are dark and polished with age, smooth from countless winters of heat. The edges glow faintly red. The old man beside her nods. Each morning we wake the fire. Each night we let it sleep. He lifts a stick from the floor and stirs the embers gently, speaking to it under his breath, as though to an old friend. Sparks rise, swirl, and vanish through the smoke hole above. The fire must be fed, but never rushed, he says. It must breathe as we breathe. The teepee shifts in the wind, its hide creaking softly. A thin ribbon of smoke spirals upward and disappears. You follow it with your eyes and realize the design of this home makes the fire possible. The vent at the top, the slope of the walls, the spacing of the poles, all of it exists so this flame can live safely, so its warmth can touch every part of the space without suffocating it. Outside, the wind can scream and tear at the earth. Inside, the flame moves like a heartbeat, steady, certain. The young man, sitting opposite you, feeds a sliver of fat to the fire. It melts instantly, releasing a thin hiss and a sweet scent. He smiles faintly. Buffalo gives us everything, he says. Hide for walls. Meat for strength. Fat for light. You look at the walls, the hide shimmering in the glow. The fire paints everything in layers. Orange, gold, shadow, gold again. Faces flicker like spirits. Eyes catch light and then fade. The child shifts in her blanket, the light dancing over her cheeks, her lashes glistening. You can feel the heartbeat of the space now. The warmth moves outward in waves. The crackle, the breathing of smoke through the vent, the faint sigh of wind pressing against the hide, all of it blends into one sound, one rhythm. The old man begins to hum. The woman joins him, her voice low and slow, a melody that rises and falls with the flames. It's not a song you recognize, but something older, half prayer, half conversation. You close your eyes and listen. The song seems to come from the fire itself. Every pop of sap, every sigh of ember falls in step. You remember what you were told outside, that the tipi mirrors the universe. Now you see it. The circle of the fire as the sun, the smoke hole as the sky, the people as the stars surrounding it. The tipi isn't just a home, it's a map of existence, drawn in light and breath. The woman stops singing and begins to speak. When a child is born, she says, its first sight of the world is fire. When we die, our spirit travels by it too. Fire connects all our beginnings and endings. The child stirs and opens her eyes, watching the flames. Her expression is calm, curious, unafraid. She leans toward the warmth, and the woman gently pulls her back. Even something sacred can burn, she murmurs. The young man laughs softly. That is how we learn respect. They all smile, and the silence that follows isn't empty, it's full of understanding. The old man points toward a few stones laid close to the fire, their surfaces dark and glistening. Those are our helpers, he says. When the wind howls too strong, or the cold grows teeth, we heat them till they glow. Then we set them near the edges of the lodge. He nods toward a stack of hides folded in the corner. They hold the heat through the night. Slow-burning hearts of the earth. You imagine it, the long, deep winter, when storms bury the world outside in white, when the air itself freezes solid. Inside, these stones radiate quiet strength, glowing softly beneath the hides, keeping life close. The fire crackles again, and a puff of sparks drifts upward. The man stirs the embers, and for a moment you see shapes in the flames, buffalo running, smoke rising from a distant ridge, a sky split by lightning. You blink, and it's gone. The old man chuckles, seeing your expression. Fire shows you what you need to see, he says. Sometimes stories, sometimes warnings, sometimes just your own heart, reflected back. He taps his chest lightly. If your spirit is calm, the fire dances soft. If your spirit is wild, it leaps high. You look closer. The flames are calm now, their edges rolling gently, light steady. You realize your breath has slowed to match them. The woman adds a bundle of sage to the fire. The smoke rises white, clean, carrying a fragrance that fills the air. She fans it toward the walls with a feather, tracing circles. This is for cleansing, she says. So the air stays kind. The scent wraps around you, earthy and pure. Outside, the first stars appear, visible through the smoke hole, a handful of small lights framed in the circle above. The old man tilts his head toward them. They say every fire you build sends its smoke to the sky. The stars are the fires of our ancestors, watching the smoke and remembering our prayers. You look up through the haze and imagine thousands of small fires across the plains, each with its own thread of smoke rising to the heavens. The night sky must look like a woven blanket from above, stitched with light and memory. The young man leans back, resting his hands on the ground. In winter, the stars move slowly, he says, like old hunters walking home. He laughs softly. Sometimes we tell stories to make them move faster. He nods to the old man, who smiles, eyes bright in the firelight. A story, he agrees. Always one more before sleep. The others settle in, pulling furs around their shoulders. The fire burns steady now, the crackle low and content. The old man begins speaking, his voice like the sound of a river under ice, slow, deep, deliberate. He tells of a time when the world was new, when the wind and the fire were brothers. The wind blew too hard and scattered the flames, so the fire hid inside stones, waiting. The people learned to coax it back out with patience and breath. Ever since, they've kept it close, remembering that too much wind can kill, and too much flame can destroy. The story ends in a long silence. Only the fire speaks now. Its glow softens, and the shadows grow deeper. The air grows thick with warmth and smoke and thought. The child has fallen asleep, her face lit by the flicker. The woman covers her gently with a fur. The young man adds the last piece of wood for the night. The old man looks at you and says, "When you wake in the morning, you'll see the smoke rising from every lodge. That is how you know the people are alive." You nod. You feel it already, the truth of it, the simplicity. Life measured not by clocks or calendars, but by the breath of fire and the whisper of smoke. Outside, the world is silent again. The cold presses against the hide walls, testing for weakness. It finds none. Inside, the air hums softly, the fire's warmth balanced perfectly with the flow of air from above. The woman hums another short melody, quieter now, almost a lullaby. The flames bend toward her as if listening. You stretch your hands once more toward the hearth. The warmth feels deeper now, not just on your skin but in your chest. This isn't just heat, it's belonging. The kind that doesn't fade when the fire dies. You close your eyes. The sound of the fire folds into your breathing. Outside, snow begins to fall again, soft and endless, the flakes hissing faintly as they touch the vent and vanish in steam. Inside, everything is still. The fire's last sparks rise and disappear into the night, joining the smoke of 1,000 other lodges. You imagine each spark finding its way among the stars, adding one more point of light to the great circle above. And as sleep begins to pull at your thoughts, you hear the old man's voice, faint but certain. "Fire is not only warmth," he says. "It is memory. Keep it well, and it will keep you." The last flame bows low, and the tipi exhales a thin plume of smoke. Outside, the wind begins to sing again, gentler this time, carrying the scent of cedar and snow. The night holds steady, warm at its heart. And within that warmth, life continues. The fire whispers low now, its voice grown softer, its heart a deep red glow among the stones. Smoke drifts lazily through the vent above, a slow exhale into the frozen night. The tipi breathes with it, warm, steady, alive. Outside, the wind sighs and brushes snow against the hide walls, but inside, the world feels small and secure. You shift where you sit, feeling the ground beneath you, firm yet yielding. It isn't bare earth. It isn't cold. There's something soft between you and the frozen soil, something that holds the heat like memory. You run your hand across it and feel the woven texture. Grass, reeds, dried rushes layered thick, their ends brushed smooth by years of hands and feet. Beneath the hides, the grass smells faintly sweet, like summer trapped beneath the snow. The woman across from you notices your touch. Her smile is quiet. "That is our floor," she says. "It remembers the green season." She leans forward, lifting one of the hides near the edge to show you what lies beneath. Under the thick buffalo skin is a mat of dried grasses and cattail reeds woven tight, then layered with pine boughs and small patches of moss. It's beautiful in its simplicity, pale gold and brown, softened by age, still holding the scent of river banks and sunlight. When the cold comes, she continues, the earth sleeps. But we do not lie upon her bare back. We give her blankets, and she gives us warmth. You press your palm flat to the mat and feel it, heat stored from the fire, spreading through the layers, kept close by the hides. The ground no longer feels like earth, it feels like life, like something cared for. The young man adds softly, "If the ground freezes you, you freeze with it. So we keep a space between us and the bones of the world." He gestures toward the child still sleeping nearby, her breath slow and even. She dreams on the grass of summer. Even in the hardest moon, she feels the sun beneath her. You look around and realize that every layer in the teepee has its own meaning, its own task. The floor isn't just a surface, it's a living barrier, a woven memory of warmth and growth. The hides, thick and supple, are more than blankets. They're the skin of the land itself, taken in gratitude and given new purpose. The woman lifts another hide to shake it out, the firelight tracing faint marks, stitched seams, patterns burned into the surface. Each one has been worked by hand, softened with fat, rubbed until pliable. When she lays it back down, it settles over the grass like water spreading across a still pond. Outside, the wind picks up again. The teepee's walls tremble slightly, the smoke hole flutters, and the fire's light wavers across the curved interior. The air cools for a moment, but the warmth beneath you holds. The floor keeps its promise. You shift closer to the hearth, folding your legs beneath you, feeling the softness under your knees. The hides move quietly with your weight, creasing and sighing. It's easy to imagine the work that went into creating this warmth. In late summer, long before the first snow falls, the people gather what they'll need for winter: long grasses cut from river meadows, reeds pulled from marsh edges, moss dried in the sun. They bind them into rolls and carry them to camp, where women and children weave them into mats, patterns of over and under, crossing lines that look like ripples on water. Each mat is measured by memory, the width of a mother's arms, the span of a child's shoulders. They dry in the wind, golden and rustling, until ready to become the ground of another world. You can almost hear it, the sound of laughter, of hands working together, of the chatter of children bringing more rushes from the riverbanks. All of it preparation for nights like this one. The woman explains. We lay the grass first, thick, to hold the warmth. Then the hides, buffalo on top, elk for softness. Sometimes even fur if the cold is strong. The old man nods. The ground must never bite you. That is the first rule of winter. You notice small details. The careful way the edges of the mats are tucked against the wall, sealed with handfuls of snow and grass to block the drafts. It's an art form disguised as practicality, beauty hidden beneath necessity. He picks up a small tuft of grass and rolls it between his fingers. In summer, he says, this grows tall enough to hide a horse. In winter, it becomes the bed for the people. The earth gives what she can, and we remember to give back. He tosses the tuft into the fire, and it burns quick and bright, releasing a scent of distant fields. The room fills with that brief ghost of warmth, the memory of sunlight caught in green blades. The young man laughs softly. Even fire remembers the summer. You lean back, the hides beneath you sighing with each shift of your weight. The texture is comforting, uneven, real. Not the softness of luxury, but the softness of purpose. Every crackle of the fire seems to settle deeper into it, as though the floor itself listens and absorbs the sound. It feels alive, this circle of warmth. The grass beneath you has known rain, sunlight, and frost. The hides have run across the plains as part of the great herds. Even the stones by the fire were once part of riverbeds, shaped by water before being gathered here. Everything in this space once had its own life, and together they keep the people alive. Outside, a sudden gust sweeps through camp. You hear it ripple through the teepees, thrum, sigh, whisper, as if the wind is playing a vast invisible drum. Snow presses against the hides, hissing softly, then slides away. Inside, the fire holds steady and calm. The woman lifts the child gently, moving her closer to the hearth. The fur blanket shifts, and you glimpse what lies beneath, another layer of hides stitched together in patches of brown, white, and gold. They gleam faintly in the firelight, smooth where years of sleep have polished them. The hides must breathe too, she says. If you trap them, they mold. If you air them too often, they stiffen. So we turn them, we clean them, we let them rest. Everything here must live, even in the cold. The child stirs, murmurs softly in her sleep. The woman hums a few notes of a lullaby, the sound blending with the low crackle of the fire. It feels ancient and eternal, that song, the voice of countless mothers across countless winters. The old man leans toward you. Many think warmth comes from fire alone, he says. But we know better. It comes from how you keep it, The floor, the hides, the walls, they all speak to each other. If one fails, the others suffer. He traces a circle in the air with his finger. Warmth moves like a spirit. You must trap it gently, not cage it. The tipi is made to breathe, and the ground is its heart. If you close it too tight, it will die. If you open it too much, it will flee. You listen, feeling the meaning in his words as much as hearing them. The warmth around you isn't just physical, it's balance, a living harmony between fire, air, and earth. Outside, the snow thickens. The wind begins to hum again, its song lower now, softer. Inside, the fire glows brighter, its light dancing across the hides. The heat from the floor rises in waves, meeting the cold at the walls in a silent negotiation. You realize that this entire space is a system of wisdom, 1,000 small choices working together. The people who built it understood things most have forgotten: how warmth moves, how breath rises, how earth holds memory. The woman stirs the fire once more, then places a few hot stones near the edge, where the hides meet the mat. The air warms almost instantly, and she nods with quiet satisfaction. "You must always feed the edges," she says. "Cold waits there." Her words sound like poetry, but you know they're also survival. The old man sighs contentedly and leans back against his fur bedding. "Now it is good," he says. "The floor holds the fire spirit, and we hold the floor." You sit in silence for a long time, listening to the slow breathing of the tipi, the wind pressing and releasing, the grass crackling softly beneath the hides, the whisper of smoke curling toward the stars. The warmth seeps up through your legs, through your chest, until it feels like your own heartbeat matches the rhythm of the fire. The space around you isn't just shelter, it's a circle of life, each element depending on the next. When the woman finally speaks again, her voice is gentle, almost sleepy. "Tomorrow we will shake the mats, air the hides, and sweep the ashes away. That is how we begin every day. Not just to clean, but to give thanks." You nod, even as your eyelids grow heavy. The fire has dimmed to a soft glow, the stones still pulsing red, the hides still radiating the warmth they've gathered all night. The child dreams, the woman hums, the old man's breathing deepens. You stretch out across the layered hides, feeling the firm softness beneath you, the warmth of fire, the scent of grass, the steady comfort of the earth remembered. Above, the smoke hole reveals a slice of sky, a few cold stars watching over this circle of warmth. You take one more breath and think, this is how the world should feel. Then, softly, like snow settling on still water, sleep takes you. And as you drift, you understand the lesson whispered by every layer beneath you. That even in the deepest cold, warmth begins from the ground up. From patience, from balance, from respect for every piece of the earth that holds you. The tipi creaks once more in the wind. The grass sighs. The hides breathe. And through that shared breath, you feel the next story waiting, glowing softly like an ember beneath the ashes. The story of those who sleep wrapped not just in furs, but in faith. The wind quiets toward midnight. The tipi's walls no longer sway but stand firm, steady as the hills. The snow outside has thickened into silence, burying sound, turning the whole world white and still. Within this small circle of firelight, warmth pools like water in a hollow, and time seems to slow until it nearly stops. You lie on the layered hides, half awake, half dreaming. The fire has burned low, its light dim and red. Around you, the family sleeps, each form wrapped in furs, their breathing even and deep. The crackle of coals, the soft rustle of movement, and the long, distant breath of the wind are the only sounds that remain. The air smells of smoke, earth, and animal hide, a mingling of life and death, of the living taking warmth from what once moved across the plains. It's not morbid. It's sacred. Every pelt, every thread of sinew, every patch of leather was given, not taken, and the people sleep within that gift as safely as children within a mother's arms. You pull your own covering tighter. The fur is thick, coarse on the outside, but inside it's soft, the underlayer brushed to a downy warmth. It carries the faint scent of wildness, sun-baked grass, river mud, a memory of wind. It's not just insulation, it's history. The old man's voice drifts through the dark, so low you almost mistake it for the wind itself. Never sleep naked, he murmurs. Never trust the night to your bare skin. The cold has long fingers. He turns slightly, the firelight glinting on his cheekbone. We sleep as we live, together, and with the gifts of the earth. The hides keep us warm, the furs remind us we are not alone. The woman beside him hums softly in her sleep, one hand resting on the child's shoulder. The fire flares as if listening. The old man adds another stick, carefully, reverently. You watch him work, no wasted movement, no haste. He blows gently on the coals until they glow orange again. We do not chase comfort, he says after a pause. We make peace with it. Fire and fur. Faith and sleep. He lies back down and pulls his robe over his shoulders, the embroidered edge catching the firelight. You recognize the pattern: buffalo, mountains, stars. The symbols of endurance. You glance around and see how everyone has arranged themselves for the night. The child and her mother nearest the fire, the old man just beyond them, the young man sleeping near the doorway, wrapped in a buffalo robe so large it could hide a horse. He is the sentinel, the one who wakes first, whose ears listen even in dreams. There is an order to it, a balance that feels ancient. Those who guard the night stay closest to the cold, those who need warmth most remain near the heart. You lie back again, watching the smoke drift toward the vent above. Each breath you take releases a faint cloud that glows in the dim light, then vanishes into the dark. The fire whispers and shifts, its light pulsing on the hides, tracing soft shapes that ripple like the surface of a river. Your body relaxes into the furs, their weight comforting. They hold you close, steady, grounding. You feel your heartbeat slow, your muscles loosen, the edges of wakefulness blur. It's a strange kind of sleep, light, alert. Even in rest, your senses remain open. You can feel the breath of those beside you, hear the faint crack of wood expanding in the heat, smell the sharp tang of the smoke. It's as if your dreams have roots in the real world, tethered by sound and scent. This is how they sleep here, not in isolation, not sealed away, but joined by warmth, by proximity, by faith that those beside you will wake when you do not. Outside, the snow continues to fall. The teepee walls hiss softly as flakes strike the hide, then melt and freeze again. The sound is hypnotic. You think of how different this is from the world you know, where warmth comes from machines, where sleep is solitary, where silence is something you buy. Here, warmth comes from bodies and belief, from trust, from the shared will to endure. The woman stirs. In her half-dreaming voice, she whispers something in Lakota, slow, rhythmic, like prayer. You don't know the words, but the tone carries meaning, gratitude. She's thanking the fire, perhaps, or the spirits of the animals whose furs cradle her child. Maybe both. Maybe all of it together. The old man murmurs back, his voice a deep echo. Then the silence returns, thick and soft. The hides shift slightly as someone turns. The movement releases a burst of scent, wood smoke, tallow, and the faint sweetness of dried grass beneath. The combination is soothing, grounding. You breathe deeply and feel the world outside the teepee drift farther away. The fire crackles once, throwing up a brief flare of light. For a moment, you see everyone clearly: the old man's lined face, the woman's relaxed expression, the young man's still form near the entrance. Their bodies glow in the flicker, outlined by fur and shadow, as if carved from the warmth itself. Then the light dims again, and the shadows close over them. You remember what the old man said earlier, about the fire being a heart, about warmth being a spirit that moves through everything. You can feel it now, that pulse, not in your chest but around you, inside you. The teepee itself seems to breathe in rhythm with the sleepers. In this quiet, faith is not spoken or preached. It's lived. It's in the act of trust, trusting the fire to burn through the night, the hides to hold their warmth, the others to wake if danger comes. It's in the belief that dawn will return, that the snow will ease, that the world outside will still be there when you open your eyes again. The old man once told you that the plains teach a kind of faith that has no name. Not the faith of churches or temples, but something older, born of wind and survival. You don't ask the snow to stop, he'd said. You ask yourself to endure. And this sleep in furs and faith, is how that endurance looks. Quiet, steady, communal. Hours pass, though you lose sense of how many. Time here doesn't move in minutes. It moves in a slow rhythm of embers dying and being stirred again. At one point you wake briefly. The young man is tending the fire, his face half lit. He places a new log, waits until it catches, then lies down again without a sound. The smoke curls upward, steady and strong. You shift and feel the furs adjust, the grass beneath sighing softly. The warmth holds, deep and even. You can sense how it radiates from the center outward, through stone, through hide, through air, through you. It's almost impossible to tell where your body ends and the teepee begins. Everything feels connected. Somewhere outside, an owl calls, low and haunting. The sound drifts in through the vent and circles the fire once before vanishing into the night. The old man's voice comes again, just above a whisper. When we sleep, we travel. We walk the plains of our dreams. We meet those who came before and those who will come after. That is why we keep the fire, so the way home is lit. You open your eyes slightly, catching his profile in the glow, eyes half closed, lips curved in the faintest smile. His words aren't meant as philosophy. They're simply truth, born of long winters and longer nights. You think of the countless generations before him who slept just like this, beneath hides, beside fires, under skies like this one. People whose names have vanished into the wind but whose warmth still lives in the shape of these homes, in the wisdom of every small, perfect detail. The wind shifts again, pressing softly against the teepee. The hides flex and sigh. The smoke hole opens wider, a faint draft brushing your face, cool but clean. You pull the fur closer around your shoulders. The heat beneath it is deep, almost living, like lying against another heartbeat. It occurs to you that warmth here isn't only physical. It's spiritual. A warmth of presence, of belonging. Even in the middle of a vast, frozen wilderness, these people are never alone. The woman's voice rises again, barely audible, the melody different now, gentler, slower. It's a song for sleep, for peace. You feel it settle over you like a second blanket. The old man joins her quietly, humming harmony. The sound blends with the fire, with the breath of the teepee, until you can't tell one from the other. Your eyelids grow heavy again. In that drifting place between waking and dreaming, you think of the buffalo whose hide covers you, the grass beneath that still holds sunlight, the fire that breathes beside you, and the faith that binds it all together. Every piece of the earth has given something to this moment, and in return, the people give gratitude. The teepee creaks once, the sound low and content. The fire glows, the furs breathe warmth, and outside, the world sleeps under a blanket of snow. You close your eyes fully now. If faith has a feeling, it is this, the trust that even through the coldest night, warmth will remain, unseen but certain, waiting for you to wake. The fire murmurs. The wind hums in its sleep. And in the circle of furs and faith, you rest within the heartbeat of the living earth itself. Morning doesn't break here, it seeps in slowly, shyly, as though afraid to disturb the peace. The light that filters through the smoke hole is soft, milky, blurred by the thin veil of lingering smoke. You wake to it gently, half between dream and dawn, still wrapped in fur and warmth. The fire has burned low again, reduced to glowing embers that pulse like the slow heartbeat of the teepee itself. You can hear the quiet breathing of the family around you. The woman and child curled together under one robe, the old man's soft snore, the young man shifting near the entrance. The air holds the scent of ash, hides, and sleep. For a few moments, you lie still, listening. The teepee creaks faintly as the wind brushes against it. Somewhere outside, horses snort, hooves stamping at the frozen ground. A dog shakes the snow from its fur, the sound sharp and clean in the crisp air. Then you hear another sound, laughter. Small, quick, unguarded. The child, awake before anyone else, whispering to her mother, giggling as the woman shushes her gently. That laughter is warmth, pure, human, irrepressible warmth, and it fills the space more quickly than fire ever could. The old man stirs. He sits up, rubbing his eyes, his hair wild and silver in the dawn light. He doesn't scold the girl. He just smiles, the lines in his face deepening. "The fire needs your laughter," he says. "It burns brighter for it." He reaches for a stick of wood and adds it to the embers. The coals catch immediately, as if the fire recognizes his hand. Soon the glow spreads, the light grows, and the teepee fills once again with the living heartbeat of flame. The woman unwraps the child from the furs, and a small burst of cold air rushes in. The girl squeals, presses herself close to her mother, then dives under the robe again, laughing harder. Everyone else laughs too, the sound rich, unhurried, echoing softly against the hides. That's how warmth begins here, not with wood or fire or fur, but with each other. You sit up and stretch, the hides beneath you sighing with your movement. The floor still holds last night's heat, stored deep within the layers of grass and reeds. Your fingers brush against the edge of the fur blanket. It's damp with the breath of many sleepers, yet still warm, still alive. The young man near the doorway yawns and pushes open the flap, letting in a breath of freezing air. Light floods the space, pale gold on snow, brilliant and blinding after the dim glow of the fire. For a moment, the warmth and the cold meet at the threshold, swirling together in visible waves. Steam rises from the heated air, curling toward the open sky. Outside, the camp is stirring. Smoke curls from other teepees. Voices drift through the morning air, some greeting the day, some teasing, some singing. The faint, rhythmic thud of a drum carries from somewhere farther off, steady, comforting, the pulse of community awakening. You step outside with the young man. The cold catches you immediately, sharp enough to sting your eyes. The snow underfoot is crusted and gleaming, every surface glittering with frost. The wind tastes clean, almost sweet. You pull your robe tight, but even as the air bites, you realize you're not cold, not truly. Something from within still burns, a heat that lingers from the night's closeness. The young man follows your gaze across the camp. "Cold means nothing," he says quietly. "What matters is who you share it with." He gestures toward a nearby lodge, where several children are tumbling through the snow, their laughter rising into the clear air. Their cheeks are pink, their breasts puffing white, their feet bare despite the frost. Their mothers stand nearby, calling out in mock scolds but smiling the whole time. He chuckles. They make heat just by being together. You walk with him a little farther, past teepees with flaps open wide to let the smoke out, past women shaking hides and laying furs to air, past men leading horses to the edge of camp for water. Everywhere you look, people move close to one another, shoulder to shoulder, sharing tasks, sharing warmth. There's no isolation here. The cold doesn't divide them, it binds them. You notice how even the simplest gestures carry meaning. A woman pours warm broth into 2 bowls and hands one to a neighbor before taking her own sip. An old man sits beside a boy, teaching him how to braid sinew cords, their fingers working side by side. 2 young men walk past with poles balanced between them, laughing at a private joke. Every act is a thread in the larger fabric of survival and love. The young man looks at you again. When the cold comes, you hold each other close. That's our first law. He grins. Even the dogs know it. Watch. He points toward the edge of camp, where a cluster of dogs lie half buried in snow, pressed tight together in a furry pile. Steam rises from their collective warmth. They're smarter than some people, he adds, laughing. You return to the teepee together. Inside, the old man has coaxed the fire back to full life, and the air shimmers with heat. The woman is stirring a pot hung above the flames. The smell makes your stomach tighten, rich, savory, the scent of bone broth and roots. The child sits beside her, holding a small wooden spoon and pretending to stir too. Each motion she makes mimics her mother's with perfect seriousness. The woman hides her smile, but you see it in her eyes. The warmth there deeper than any fire could create. The old man watches them both, his expression quiet, filled with the slow kind of pride that needs no words. He catches your gaze and says simply, "That is how the lodge stays warm." You understand what he means. Heat here isn't just temperature, it's love, continuity, belonging. Every family carries its own fire, and together they light the village. The woman ladles broth into carved bowls and passes them around. You cup yours with both hands, letting the heat sink into your fingers before taking a sip. The taste is earthy, grounding, the flavor of the land itself. The child blows carefully on her portion, then slurps it, grinning. The young man chuckles. "That's how we know she's alive," he says. The girl sticks her tongue out at him, and the teepee fills again with laughter. As the meal ends, the old man leans back, his eyes half closed. "When I was a boy," he says, "we slept 12 to a lodge. My parents, my brothers, my uncles, their wives, the little ones all piled together. We fought for space near the fire, but no one ever froze. That's how warmth works. It grows when you give it away." He smiles faintly, remembering. "We didn't have much, but we had each other. That was enough." The young man nods, his tone more serious now. "The cold teaches us to be kind. Alone you die. Together you live." The woman looks up from washing the bowls. "Even when it is not winter, we stay close," she says. "The fire may rest, but the heart must keep burning." The child, sleepy now from the heat and full belly, climbs into her mother's lap. Her tiny hands clutch the woman's braid. The old man hums again, an old melody, perhaps older than the teepee itself. The tune drifts softly through the air, gentle as breath. You sit back and watch the scene unfold. The circle of family, the balance of generations, the unspoken tenderness that keeps this world turning even when the land itself sleeps in ice. The teepee glows like a hearth in the endless white, its smoke curling upward in quiet gratitude. And you realize this is what warmth truly means, not escape from the cold, but communion within it. The earth gives cold, the fire gives heat, and the people give each other everything in between. Outside, the day brightens, light spilling like gold across the snow. The child drifts into a nap, the woman strokes her hair, and the old man hums his song of mornings past. The young man adds another log to the fire and turns toward you. "Now you know," he says softly. "The fire is at the center, but family is the flame." You glance once more at the sleeping child, at the circle of faces around the fire, and you feel the truth of his words settle deep inside you. This is how they survive the winter, not through tools, not through chance, but through closeness. Through warmth shared freely, like breath. The teepee breathes around you, the hides creaking as the wind shifts outside. The smoke hole opens wider, letting a thin ray of sunlight fall onto the fire's heart. For a moment, the entire space glows golden, hides, faces, hair, all bathed in that fragile, holy light. You can almost believe that the sun itself has knelt down to join this family, drawn by their warmth. And when the wind howls again across the plains, the sound no longer feels menacing. It feels like a song. A reminder that even here, where cold reigns and life bends to its will, love endures. The old man smiles faintly at the wind's voice. "It calls us," he says. It reminds us that we are small, but not alone. He leans forward, places another log onto the fire, and the flame leaps upward, golden and alive. You sit back, letting the heat wash over you. Outside, the snow glitters. Inside, the teepee glows. And between them, between the cold world and the warm heart of this lodge, lies the secret of survival, the one truth that holds it all together. That in the depth of winter, warmth isn't something you build. It's something you share. The sun climbs higher, pale and cold, its light sliding across the snow like a hand brushing silk. The air outside glitters with frost, each crystal catching the light and throwing it back in a quiet shimmer. The morning has fully arrived on the plains, wide, breathless, and eternal. You step out of the teepee, leaving behind the circle of warmth and laughter, and the cold greets you instantly. It doesn't bite this time, it embraces, familiar now. The air is sharp and clean, a reminder that you are small beneath this sky but not unwelcome. The camp stretches out in a broad ring of life. Smoke rises from every lodge, twisting upward into the blue. Horses stamp their hooves near the edge of the encampment, tails flicking, their breath pluming white. Children dart between teepees, their shrieks and laughter carving holes in the morning silence. You turn east and see where the horizon opens like a wound of light, the place where the sun was born only hours ago. Every teepee faces that way. Always southeast. Toward dawn. Toward renewal. The young man you'd spoken with earlier joins you, pulling his robe tighter against the wind. He follows your gaze, nodding slowly. The lodges must always face the sunrise, he says. The wind comes from the north, but the light comes from the east. We choose to meet the day, not the storm. You ask why, though you already sense the answer. He gestures across the open expanse of white, toward the invisible edge of the world. The north wind brings teeth, he says. It comes with hunger, with ice, with silence. You never challenge it. You listen. You bow to it, as you would to an elder. He lifts a handful of snow, lets it sift through his fingers. The flakes scatter, catching the light before vanishing into the wind. The wind teaches you, he says. It tells you how to live, how to build, how to move. Everything we have learned came from listening. You walk with him to the outskirts of the camp, where the plains stretch unbroken to every side. The wind hums across that vastness like an endless song. You can feel it tugging gently at your robe, threading through your hair, brushing your face with invisible fingers. He points to a set of ridges forming low waves in the snow. When the wind shifts, it draws lines, he says. If you know how to read them, they tell you where it came from and where it will go. A man who understands the wind will never lose his way. The two of you stand there for a while, listening. The sound isn't constant, it breathes. It rises, falls, pauses, returns. The wind here isn't just weather. It's a companion. Sometimes cruel, sometimes kind, but always present. He closes his eyes, face tilted upward. It's talking today, he says softly. Not angry. Just reminding us it's there. The cold wraps around you both, and you realize something profound in that moment. The people who live here don't fight the wind, they fold themselves into its rhythm. They've built a life not of defiance, but of harmony. You glance back at the camp. From this distance, the teepees form a perfect crescent, their backs turned against the north wind, their faces tilted toward the rising sun. It's a map of wisdom carved in hide and snow, a quiet defiance that doesn't need to shout. The young man gestures toward his own teepee. When we build, we let the wind tell us where to stand, he explains. The first pole leans away from the north. The doorway always opens to the east. The smoke hole above faces the sunrise. Even the horses know to stand that way. It is balance. A gust rushes past, colder now, carrying with it the smell of distant pine and smoke from other camps beyond the horizon. The teepees ripple in answer, their hides fluttering like breathing lungs. He smiles. See? They move with it, not against it. The wind becomes part of the lodge. It helps it live. You walk a little farther, where the wind is stronger, sharper. The snow scours your boots. You can feel it pushing against your chest, but instead of leaning into it, you mimic what you've seen the others do. You turn slightly, let it pass along your side. Instantly, the pressure lessens. The force that threatened to push you back now slides past you like water around stone. He nods approvingly. Now you're listening. The old man's voice comes from behind you. You hadn't heard his approach. His steps are soundless in the snow. He joins you, his buffalo robe billowing softly in the wind, his hair white against the blue sky. He looks out over the horizon with calm eyes. The wind is older than we are, he says. It knows more than we do. We were foolish once, tried to fight it, tried to block it. But the wind never loses. It just waits. He kneels and picks up a handful of snow, pressing it between his palms until it melts. We learn to bend, to live by its rules. That is why we are still here. He looks up, his face creased with both wisdom and humor. You can tell how long a man has lived by how he walks in the wind. The young fight it, the old let it carry them. You can almost see it, the memory of long winters past, of riders crossing frozen plains, their cloaks snapping like wings in the gale, their faces calm as the storm tore around them. The wind howls, but they move through it like ghosts, unbothered. The old man straightens slowly. When you face the wind, you face your own smallness, he says. That's not weakness. It's understanding. He points to the smoke rising from the camp. Even our fires learn from the wind. If it blows hard, we lower the flame, tighten the flaps, let it rest. If it softens, we feed it more. The wind decides, not us. You glance back toward the teepees and see it now, the delicate equilibrium at play. Each flap, each cord, each pole has been placed in relationship to the wind, not in opposition to it. The design isn't resistance, it's conversation. The young man adds, the word for north in our language also means hunger. The word for east means hope. So we turn our homes toward hope. His words linger in the air like frost. The old man begins walking again, slow and deliberate. Long ago, he says, the first people came here and nearly died in their first winter. They built walls to block the wind, but the snow climbed higher. They cursed the sky, but it kept blowing. So they prayed. And the wind answered, not with words, but with silence. They watched the grass bend and learned. They built teepees shaped like the wind itself. And from that day, we have lived. You picture it, the birth of wisdom through humility. People watching storms and learning not from conquest, but from surrender. A strong gust tears across the plains, tugging at your robe, biting at your skin. You brace yourself out of instinct, then relax, remembering. You let the wind pass through you. When it's gone, you feel strangely cleansed, as though it's taken something with it, fear, perhaps, or arrogance. The young man grins, eyes gleaming. Now you understand why we face east. The wind may come from the north, but we always look toward the light. The old man nods. The wind teaches patience. The sunrise teaches hope. Together, they make the heart strong. You stand together in silence, the three of you, old, young, and stranger, watching the white world breathe beneath the sky. The wind hums again, softer now. The clouds drift in slow herds overhead. Far off, a hawk rides an invisible current, steady and effortless. The young man shades his eyes. Even the birds know. They don't fight the wind, they dance with it. He smiles at you. You will feel it too. When you stop fighting, you'll start flying. The old man laughs, low and warm, the sound almost swallowed by the wind. Careful, he says. The wind likes to keep what it carries. You laugh too, though quietly. There's truth in the joke. Out here, the wind holds everything, the breath of the living, the whispers of the dead, the prayers rising from every fire. It's the great keeper, the endless traveler. The young man's gaze turns toward the camp again. When the wind grows angry, we tighten our circle. We stay close, keep the fires low, wait. When it softens, we move. We travel with it. The wind tells us when to stay, when to go. You think of that rhythm, the stillness, the motion, the surrender. The balance that defines their existence. The old man looks skyward, the lines of his face deepening. If you can stand in the wind without fear, he says, you belong to this land. The young man touches your shoulder. Come. The women are preparing meat. You'll need strength before the storm returns. As you turn back toward camp, the wind swirls behind you, playful now, tugging at your robe as if reluctant to let you go. The teepees loom closer, smoke rising from their peaks like breath from sleeping giants. And for the first time, you feel it fully, the balance of cold and warmth, motion and stillness, surrender and strength. You understand why every teepee faces the sunrise. Why every heart here faces hope. Why every soul learns, sooner or later, to bow to the wind. Because survival on these plains isn't defiance, it's grace. You step back into the lodge, and the flap falls closed behind you. The fire greets you with its gentle crackle, the family with quiet smiles. The warmth folds around you once more, whole and unbroken. Outside, the wind howls across the snow. Inside, the people laugh. Two halves of the same world, each alive, each listening to the other. And somewhere between them, you realize, lies the secret of endurance. To face the wind, not to fight it. To bend, and in bending, never break. The flap of the teepee falls shut behind you, and the wind's voice softens to a muffled hum, still present, but distant now, like the echo of the world outside. The air inside feels thicker, scented with pine smoke, tallow, and the faint sweetness of burned sage. The light is dim, orange and steady, a small sun beating quietly at the center of the space. You stand for a moment, breathing in. The air has weight, warmth, and rhythm. It moves as the teepee moves, as though both inhale and exhale in time. You can feel it, a slow pull as the fire draws breath through the door flap, a soft sigh as smoke slips upward toward the vent. The old man gestures for you to sit. His movements are slow, deliberate, as if everything he does belongs to the same steady current of air. Now you will learn the lungs of the lodge, he says, voice gravelly with age but smooth as polished stone. You kneel again near the fire. The embers glow deep red beneath the flicker of new flame. Smoke curls lazily upward, forming ribbons that twist and fade into the narrow opening above. Through that circle, you see a small patch of sky, pale blue, cloudless, endless. The young man lifts a pole and points it toward the top. See the flaps? He asks. You look up. Two hide panels jut outward on either side of the smoke hole, held in place by forked poles that stretch down into the lodge. The hides flutter faintly with each breath of wind. They are the lungs, he says. They open and close so the lodge can live. He demonstrates. A small tug on one pole shifts the flap, widening the opening. Another pull tightens it, closing the space against the gusts. Instantly, the smoke changes course, rising more smoothly, drawn upward in a clean stream. When the wind changes, the lungs change, he explains. If you fight it, you choke. If you listen, you breathe. The old man nods. Even air must be respected, he adds. Too much, and the fire dies. Too little, and it suffocates. Everything must find balance. You watch as the smoke swirls above the flame. It doesn't rise straight. It dances, curling like a spirit that can't quite decide whether to stay or leave. The light within it pulses faintly, then stretches thin, until it disappears through the vent into the great cold beyond. The woman stirs a pot hanging over the fire, the steam rising to join the smoke, twisting together like lovers. She hums softly to herself. The sound merges with the sigh of the draft, the crackle of burning wood, the occasional pop of sap. Each noise feels connected, each breath part of the same invisible system, the tipi breathing through fire and wind and smoke. You think of the homes you know, sealed tight, built to keep the outside away. Here, there is no barrier. The air moves freely, alive. The line between inside and out doesn't exist, it only shifts. The old man seems to read your thoughts. We never close the air, he says. If you stop the breath, the spirit leaves. He gestures toward the vent. At night, the smoke carries our prayers. In the morning, it brings the new day in. Every breath we take passes through that hole. Our lungs and the lodge's lungs are the same. You follow the path of the smoke with your eyes again. Each wisp glows gold as it passes through a ray of sunlight filtering down through the vent. For an instant, you can almost see shapes in it. Buffalo herds, mountains, faces. You blink, and the forms dissolve, leaving only motion. The young man smiles faintly. The smoke always tells stories, he says. Sometimes it remembers things we forget. He sits cross-legged beside you, leaning slightly toward the flame. When storms come, we lower the flaps to one side, so the wind pulls the smoke out instead of pushing it down. When the air is calm, we open both. That way the fire stays strong, the warmth stays clean. He points upward again. The wind from the north makes the smoke fall. That is why our doors face east. The breath must move forward, not backward. Outside, a gust hits the teepee, and you hear it ripple across the hide. The flaps at the top tremble, then adjust themselves automatically with a creak of leather and cord. The smoke inside wavers for a moment, then steadies. It's like watching lungs fill and empty, finding their rhythm again. The woman lifts the lid from her pot, releasing a thicker column of steam. It mingles with the smoke, blurring the air. You feel the heat and the scent, earthy, alive, mixed with the sharpness of pine. It's not unpleasant. It feels like being inside the world's own breath. The old man reaches toward the vent, tracing a circle in the air with his finger. That hole, he says, is the path between this world and the one above. The smoke carries our words to those who listen. He glances at you, his eyes bright in the firelight. We breathe their air. They breathe ours. That is how the circle stays unbroken. You look again at the smoke, and it's impossible not to imagine it as alive, traveling upward into the cold morning, slipping past the clouds, vanishing into the endless blue where the ancestors dwell. Some are far above, perhaps. Someone is inhaling that same breath, remembering the people below. The young man picks up a piece of dry cedar and tosses it into the fire. The wood hisses, releases a puff of fragrant smoke. Cedar makes the air pure, he says. The spirits like it. It tells them we are thankful. The smell fills the teepee instantly, sweet, sharp, cleansing. The old man inhales deeply, eyes closing in contentment. That, he murmurs, is the scent of morning prayers. The child wakes and sits up, rubbing her eyes. The woman lifts her onto her lap, wraps her in a fur, and points toward the vent. The girl watches the smoke curiously, then blows toward it, as though sending her own tiny prayer into the sky. Everyone smiles. The young man laughs softly. She already knows. The smoke listens even to small voices. The air thickens for a moment as the wind outside shifts again. You can hear it whistling faintly above, circling the tip of the lodge like a curious animal. Then the flaps adjust, and a new draft slides through the doorway. The smoke lifts, then clears. You can feel the change on your skin, the slight cooling of the air, the new freshness that comes with it. The teepee has taken a breath, drawn the outside in, and exhaled peace. The old man nods approvingly. The lodge knows what to do, he says. It breathes better than we do sometimes. He chuckles, a low rumble like distant thunder. When I was young, I thought I could outsmart the wind. I built a small lodge and closed it tight, so no air could escape. The fire burned strong for a while, then the smoke turned black, and the air turned sour. By morning, my eyes stung, my chest ached, and I couldn't see the door. My father found me coughing like an old bear. He said, "You tried to make a house live without lungs? Remember, boy, even a home must breathe." He laughed softly at the memory, shaking his head. I never forgot. You smile with him, understanding now that every part of this home, the poles, the hides, the flaps, the floor, the fire, the smoke, is alive because it moves. Nothing here is sealed. Nothing static. You look upward once more. The smoke moves steadily now, its motion hypnotic. It's impossible to tell where it ends, the line between earth and sky erased by the rhythm of breath and flame. The young man speaks again, voice low. When someone dies, we open both flaps wide. We let the smoke rise freely, so their spirit can travel. The air carries them. The wind takes them home. The teepee grows quiet. Even the fire seems to lower its voice. The old man gazes into the flames, his expression calm, reverent. We live by the breath of this world, he says. When our own ends, we return it. The woman murmurs a few words in her language, soft, like smoke itself, and tosses a pinch of sage into the fire. The flames flare, releasing a cloud of white that fills the space before rising cleanly through the vent. You watch it go. The white plume swirls and disappears into the cold light above. For a moment, the teepee feels like a single lung exhaling into the world, a perfect harmony between earth, air, fire, and spirit. Outside, the wind sighs again, gentler now, carrying the smoke away like a message accepted. The hides rustle, the cords creak softly, and the light from the vent shifts as the sun climbs higher. The air feels new, fresh, balanced. You realize that every breath you've taken since stepping inside has been shared by fire, by wind, by people, by the unseen world above. There is no separation, only flow. The old man looks at you, eyes gleaming with quiet amusement. Now you understand, he says. You are breathing the same air as everything else. The buffalo, the snow, the stars, even the wind that chased you here. He gestures toward the smoke hole one last time. That is the breath of life. Never forget it. The teepee hums softly around you. The smoke drifts upward in thin silver threads, vanishing into light. The wind outside shifts direction again, whispering across the hides. The balance holds. And for a long, still moment, you simply breathe, breathing with the lodge, with the earth, with the ancient rhythm that has carried life across these plains since time began. You don't speak. You don't need to. The air speaks for everyone. The smoke thins as the fire burns steady, each tendril lifting cleanly through the vent into the pale morning sky. The old man's words linger in your thoughts. Even a home must breathe. The teepee has exhaled, and now the air inside feels lighter, clearer, alive again. Outside, the wind is rising, no longer the gentle hum of dawn, but the fuller breath of midday. You can hear it pressing against the hides, rolling over the plains in long invisible waves. The temperature begins to drop, the cold slipping back into the world like a tide returning. The old man stirs the fire once more, watching the flames with thoughtful eyes. Then he reaches for a rounded stone resting near the edge of the hearth. He nudges it gently with a stick. It glows faintly red beneath a thin layer of ash. He nods to the young man. It's time, he says. The younger one rises and retrieves several more stones from a pile beside the door, each smooth and dark, chosen carefully from the riverbeds months ago. You notice how he handles them, not like tools, but like companions. These, he says, holding one up, are our second fire. The slow fire. The quiet one. He places the stones near the heart of the flames. The surfaces hiss as sap and heat meet, tiny sparks flicking outward like fireflies. The old man explains. When the night grows long and the wind bites through even the hides, we feed the stones first. They will hold the fire's strength long after the flames are gone. He gestures toward the teepee's walls, where a thin frost has begun to gather in the shaded folds. The cold always finds a way in, he murmurs. But we have ways to meet it. The stones begin to glow brighter now, their edges shimmering in the dim light. The fire crackles, alive with energy. You can feel the heat building, a radiant, steady pulse that travels outward, wrapping around you like unseen hands. The woman gathers thick hide mitts and, with practiced care, lifts one of the stones from the fire using a pair of antler tongs. Steam rises where it touches the cold air. She carries it to the edge of the lodge, placing it gently on a flat rock ringed with snow. The heat spreads outward, hissing softly as the frost melts. One by one, she moves the glowing stones from the center to the perimeter, forming a quiet constellation of warmth. The old man watches her work, pride softening his features. "It was the women who first thought of this," he says. "They saw how stones by the fire stayed warm long after we slept. They learned to use them like hearts, each one keeping the circle alive." The young man adds fresh wood to the fire, its flames roaring higher before settling again. "When the wind is cruel," he says, "we keep the stones near the hides. The heat seeps through slowly, like blood through veins." You reach toward one of the stones closest to you. The air around it trembles with warmth. When you hold your hand above it, the heat flows upward in invisible ribbons. It's a different kind of warmth than the fire's direct blaze, deeper, steadier, more patient. The woman smiles as she sees you watching. "The stones remember," she says. "They keep the sun inside them." She presses her palm lightly against one, her expression serene. "These came from the river," she explains. "They've known water, frost, and time. When you give them fire, they do not fight it, they hold it, as the land holds all things." You understand now why the old man called them the quiet fire. Their heat doesn't shout, it hums. It seeps into everything, into the hides, the grass floor, the air, your bones. It's a warmth that asks for patience, not attention. The child, newly awake, crawls toward one of the stones, reaching out with curiosity. Her mother catches her wrist gently, laughing. "Careful," she says softly. "The earth is awake there." The old man chuckles. "Let her feel," he says. "Let her learn the power of what looks small." The woman nods and lifts the child's hand, guiding it close but not touching. The girl's eyes widen at the invisible heat. "It breathes," she whispers. Her mother smiles. "Yes, it breathes." The family settles back into their rhythm. The woman prepares a meal. The men adjust the fire and tighten the cords along the teepee's lower edges. Outside, the wind continues to rise, its voice deeper now, carrying flakes of snow that brush the hides in soft, rhythmic bursts. But inside, the heat holds fast. You sit quietly, watching the interplay of flame and stone, smoke and air, wind and wall. Every element of this place answers another, like a conversation that has lasted for generations. The people of the plains don't build walls to block the cold. They weave it into their world and soften its edges with understanding. The young man glances toward you. "When you travel far," he says, "and the night finds you before camp is ready, you can still live if you have stones." He picks up one of the smaller ones, black and smooth. "You heat it in your fire, then bury it under your robes. It will warm you all night. If you are many, you pass them between you, so the warmth moves like a heartbeat through the circle." He tosses the stone lightly from hand to hand, then sets it down again. The people who don't know this freeze with fires still burning beside them. They never learn that heat must be carried, not trapped. The old man leans back, nodding. "We learned that from the buffalo," he says. "When they rest in snow, they lie close together. Their bodies keep the warmth between them, not above them. We do the same, with each other, with stones, with fire. Everything must touch." The idea sits with you, simple yet profound. Heat, like love, survives only in motion, passed from one to another. The woman finishes her work and sits down beside the fire. The air is thick with the scent of roasted meat and pine smoke. She hands each person a small piece of food, steaming in the cool air. You eat slowly, savoring the richness, feeling warmth spread outward from your stomach to your hands and feet. Outside, the wind strikes harder now, a steady roar pressing against the hides. The teepee trembles, but it holds. Inside, the stones glow, the fire burns low but sure, and the air hums with the equilibrium of a living world. The old man gestures toward the nearest stone. When the storm speaks, he says, the fire listens and the stones answer. He falls silent, eyes half closed, listening. You realize he means it literally. The rhythm of the wind outside seems to echo in the small crackles of the heated stones, the low hiss, the faint pop, like a hidden dialogue between earth and sky. After a while, the young man rises and checks the door flap. A burst of cold air sweeps through, and everyone instinctively moves closer to the fire. The child squeals as the draft brushes her face, then laughs as the warmth rushes back to meet it. The old man smiles. That's how you know the lodge is alive, he says. It breathes with you. It warms you and tests you. It gives and takes. The stones are its heartbeats. He lowers his voice, almost to a whisper. If you listen closely on a quiet night, you can hear them sing. You tilt your head, half expecting a sound. For a long moment, there's only the wind, the faint crackle of ash, the slow sigh of the flaps above. But then you hear it, so subtle you wonder if it's imagined. A low, rhythmic murmur, like water moving beneath ice. The sound of heat traveling through stone. You sit still, afraid to break it. The child tilts her head, hearing it too. Her eyes are wide, her mouth slightly open. It's talking, she whispers. Yes, the woman says softly. It tells us we are safe. The old man smiles, satisfied. Now you understand why we say the fire has many voices. The teepee grows warmer still, a cocoon of heat and light against the storm's howl. The air shimmers faintly, bending the shapes of those around you, making the space feel dreamlike, sacred. You think again of the stones by the river, how they've been shaped by ages of wind and water, how they've known both cold and warmth, silence and current. And now, they hold the heart of this family, this moment. Outside, the wind continues its song, but inside, the lodge hums with a deeper melody, steady, patient, eternal. The old man settles back, eyes closing. The stones will keep watch tonight, he murmurs. They don't sleep. They hold our fire until the dawn. You look at the glowing shapes, the faint red pulsing in their cores. You feel their heat, constant and unbroken. The fire may fade, but the warmth will stay. And as the day turns toward dusk, as the storm presses harder against the world beyond the hides, you realize the truth the old man has been teaching all along. That endurance is not the absence of cold, but the art of holding warmth long enough for the sun to return. The woman hums quietly beside the child. The man feeds one last stick into the coals. The stones glow brighter, answering in silence. Outside, the wind roars. Inside, the earth's hidden hearts beat on. And in their rhythm, you hear the promise of survival. The storm comes in full that night. You hear it before you see it, the low, distant growl rolling across the horizon like a drumbeat. Then the wind arrives, sharp and deliberate, tearing through the snowfields, rattling the poles, and whistling at the seams of the lodge. The world outside disappears into a white roar. Inside, though, the air remains steady and alive. The hides tremble with each gust, but the teepee bends, not breaks. The stones along the walls glow faintly red in the darkness, their heat radiating like a dozen small hearts. The fire at the center burns low but strong, its embers breathing light that paints the walls with shifting gold. You sit with the family in silence, each person listening to the sounds of the night. the wind's fury, the hiss of snow, the slow sigh of the tipi adjusting to each breath of air. And somewhere beneath it all, the deeper rhythm continues, warmth moving from stone to air, air to skin, skin to heart. The old man breaks the silence first. His voice is soft, but it carries. The storm reminds us we are small, he says. That is why we thank it. If we forget humility, the wind will teach it back to us. The young man nods. When the storm speaks, it's time to rest and remember. He gestures toward the fire. We don't travel, we don't hunt, we don't test the world. We sit, we talk, we give thanks for what has already been given. The woman begins to hum, low, wordless, almost like breathing set to rhythm. The sound grows until it fills the teepee, wrapping around you, softening the harshness of the wind outside. The melody rises and falls like the flicker of flame, never hurried, never still. You realize it isn't just a song. It's a prayer in motion. A way of aligning body and breath with the world beyond the hides. The old man adds his voice, rough but steady, blending with hers. The tones weave together like smoke trails rising toward the vent, twining and parting, finding harmony again. He reaches into a small pouch beside him and scatters something into the fire. The flames flash blue and green for an instant, the scent of sweetgrass and sage rising to fill the air. The smoke thickens, curling in soft rings that drift upward. This, he says, is how we feed the spirits when we rest. The herbs carry our thanks. The smoke carries our words. He gestures toward the vent above. The wind that tried to break us will carry those prayers home. The child, eyes wide in the firelight, imitates him, pressing her tiny fingers together in concentration before blowing softly toward the smoke. The woman smiles, laying a hand on her daughter's hair. She prays for her own dreams. She murmurs. The spirits listen to all voices, even the smallest. The old man's eyes glint. Especially the smallest. You watch the fire burn slower, gentler. The smoke rises in smooth, even lines now, as if the teepee itself has settled into meditation. The air grows thicker with warmth, heavy with the sense of earth and leaf and time. The old man speaks again, voice low and reverent. Every night before sleep, we make peace with the day. We thank the fire for its strength, the stones for their patience, the hides for their shelter, and the wind for its lessons. Then we rest. Without thanks, warmth fades. The young man adds, the storm may rage outside, but it will not find anger here. He looks toward the flap, where snow sifts faintly in with each gust. Our rest is our defiance. The woman smiles. Not defiance, she says. Harmony. The storm does what it must. So do we. They fall quiet again, each turning inward. The child curls into her mother's lap, her small fingers clinging to the edge of a fur blanket. The fire pops softly. A spark leaps upward, bright for an instant, before vanishing into smoke. The old man closes his eyes and begins to speak again, but now the words flow in Lakota, gentle, melodic, older than translation. His tone shifts like a river's current, sometimes rising, sometimes pausing. You don't understand the words, but the meaning moves through the air like warmth through stone. Gratitude. Memory. Continuity. The young man listens, nodding at certain phrases. When the old man finishes, the younger repeats the last line in English, his voice soft and certain. The earth is never still. Even when we sleep, she dreams us. The fire crackles. The stones hum faintly in the quiet. Then the woman begins another song, this one lighter, playful, almost teasing. She claps her hands softly to keep rhythm. The child giggles and joins in, swaying from side to side, her laughter mingling with the melody. The young man picks up a drum from beside the wall, a small frame covered with hide, and begins to tap it gently. The sound is deep and steady, echoing the heartbeat beneath all things. The old man's face softens. This is the way, he murmurs. We sing before we sleep so the spirits know we are unafraid. The song fills the teepee like warmth fills the air, pushing back the edge of the storm's howl. It's not loud, not bold, it's intimate, human, woven from gratitude and exhaustion and quiet joy. Outside, the wind rages, but inside, laughter rises. The balance holds. After a time, the song fades. The drumbeat slows, then stops. The silence that follows is full, alive, rich with the residue of music and smoke. The woman sprinkles a handful of ash over the fire, dimming its flames to glowing coals. The air softens, tinted red and gold. The old man speaks once more, almost to himself. We rest not because we are weary, he says, but because the world rests too. The snow must fall, the fire must quiet, and our hearts must slow. That is how the circle continues. He leans back, his silhouette outlined in faint light. If you fight sleep, you fight the balance. If you surrender, you join it. He looks toward you, his eyes reflecting the fire's glow. Sleep is not escape. It is return. The family begins to prepare for the night. The young man tucks the stones closer to the hides, sealing the warmth inside. The woman lays new furs over the child and hums another soft melody. The old man sprinkles more herbs into the coals, the smoke now thin and silvery, curling upward like a final blessing. You follow their lead, wrapping yourself in a thick robe, feeling the warmth sink deep into your bones. The teepee's breathing slows with the night, the flaps at the top swaying gently, the draft perfectly balanced. The fire glows steady, no longer wild but calm, its pulse syncing with your own. The stones whisper faintly, the sound of heat meeting cold, of patience holding against time. The old man's voice drifts once more through the dim. We have done all we can for today. Now we give the rest to the spirits. He closes his eyes. The woman murmurs a final line of song. The young man lies down near the doorway, one hand on his spear, the other resting on his chest. The child sighs in her dreams, the sound soft as falling snow. You lie back, the hides cool beneath you but warming quickly with your body's heat. The air smells of sage, smoke, and sleep. The rhythm of the storm outside fades, softened by the layers of hide and snow. The fire murmurs a last secret to the stones. The teepee exhales, its flaps shifting one final time, balancing the breath of earth and sky. Your eyes drift closed. The last thing you feel is the slow pulse of warmth moving through the floor, through your hands, through the air, alive, enduring, eternal. And somewhere within that gentle rhythm, you understand. Rest here is not the end of the day. It's the beginning of gratitude. You breathe once more with the lodge, with the storm, with the unseen world beyond the smoke hole. And in that perfect balance of ritual and rest, you sleep, carried, sheltered, and endlessly alive. By morning, the storm has passed. The world outside is reborn into silence, the kind that feels almost holy, like the earth itself is holding its breath. The teepee's walls no longer tremble. They glisten, rimmed with frost that catches the pale dawn light and turns it to silver. Smoke rises in a thin column through the vent, straight and steady against the still air. You open your eyes slowly, the air inside soft and dim. The fire has burned down to glowing coals, small and patient. The stones along the walls still radiate faint heat. You feel it in your hands, your chest, your bones. For a moment you listen. Nothing stirs but the faint creak of the hides, the slow, even breathing of those still asleep, and the occasional whisper of snow sliding from the roof above. Outside, the land has fallen into a deep and perfect calm. The woman is the first to rise. She moves with quiet grace, shaking the snow gently from the flap, then feeding the fire a few dry sticks. The sound of flame catching fills the space like a sigh. She adds herbs, a pinch of sage, a twist of cedar, and the smell of them curls through the air, pure and sharp, waking memory. The old man stirs next. He sits up slowly, rubbing his hands together, and smiling faintly at the sound of the windless morning. The storm has left her gift, he says. The snow will keep the cold above the ground and the rivers quiet beneath. The young man sits beside him, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. The horses will be restless, he says. They can smell the clear air. The old man chuckles. Let them. They dream of running. The child wakes last, blinking against the dim light, then crawling toward the warmth of the fire. The woman wraps a fur around her shoulders and kisses the top of her head. You watch this small ritual unfold, gentle, unhurried, born from generations of rhythm. No rush to reclaim the day, no fear of the cold that waits outside. Just calm understanding. The world has its pace, and so must you. The old man catches your gaze and nods toward the door. Come, he says. See how the earth looks after a battle. You follow him out. The air bites your face, crisp and bright. The sky stretches wide, unbroken blue. The storm has swept the land clean, leaving every ridge and hollow smoothed into waves of white. Snow sparkles in the sunlight like scattered stars. The camp is quiet but alive. Wisps of smoke rise from each lodge, the only motion in the still air. The horses stand in small groups near the edge of camp, their coats dusted with frost, their breath rising in soft plumes. Beyond them, the world rolls outward, endless, white waiting. The old man stands with his robe wrapped tightly around him. This is what the wind leaves behind, he says. Peace. And lesson. He gestures toward the horizon. The young fear the storm. The old learn to thank it. It clears what must be cleared. It reminds the heart that survival is not victory, it is belonging. The young man joins you, his face fresh and cold, eyes bright with the kind of energy that follows endurance. He laughs suddenly, the sound echoing across the still air. The wind forgot to take us this time. The old man smiles. It never tries. It only asks, are you ready? You look around, the stillness, the light, the warmth lingering beneath your skin from the night before. You realize that here, winter is not something to fear. It's something to live within, to learn from, to endure not by fighting but by joining. The young man kneels, scooping up a handful of snow. He crushes it lightly between his palms, then holds it out toward the sun. You see? Even the cold carries light. The old man nods. The snow is not the enemy. It keeps our water, feeds the grass, hides the seeds. It slows the world so that life can rest. He glances toward you. The ones who fear it never learn to listen. They build walls, chase fire, curse the wind. But the cold does not hate. It teaches. You look out over the plains again. There's a strange comfort in the vastness, a serenity that makes you feel both tiny and infinite at once. The snow doesn't threaten, it embraces. The silence doesn't empty, it fills. The woman steps out of the teepee, the child in her arms. The girl squints at the brightness, her breath puffing small clouds. The woman kneels, setting her down, and the child immediately presses her hands into the snow, laughing as it squeaks beneath her palms. Her laughter cuts through the silence like a bird's call, light and defiant. The old man's face softens. That is what keeps us alive, he says. We teach them not to fear what touches their skin. He kneels beside the girl and scoops a handful of snow, pressing it gently to his forehead. To remember the cold. He murmurs. To remember we are part of it. The child copies him clumsily, giggling as the chill makes her flinch. Cold, she shouts. Yes, the old man chuckles. And good. The young man walks toward the horses, brushing snow from their backs. They nicker softly, pressing their noses against his hands. The old man watches, his eyes distant but peaceful. They don't fear winter either, he says. They were born to move through it. Like us. He gestures toward the horizon again, where the snow meets the sky in a seamless white line. The plains have always been this way, beautiful, cruel, honest. The cold strips away what is weak, but it also reveals what is strong. And the strong are never hard, only patient. You think of the night before, the songs, the fire, the glowing stones, the circle of warmth in the storm. You realize then that their strength doesn't come from muscle or weapon or anger. It comes from acceptance, from rhythm, from faith in the balance of things. The old man turns back toward the teepee. Come, he says. The day will be long, but not hurried. We keep the fire alive, not because we fear the cold, but because we honor it. Inside, the air feels almost soft now. The smoke curls lazily, the fire burns gentle and steady. The stones near the wall are warm again, their glow faint but constant. The woman places a pot above the flame, filling it with melted snow and strips of dried meat. The scent of life returning fills the lodge. The old man settles beside the fire, hands spread toward the warmth. Winter, he says, is when we remember who we are. He stares into the flames, his eyes reflecting their light. In summer, we move fast. We chase the herds, cross the rivers, follow the grass. But in winter, we move inward. We tell stories, sing the old songs, mend what is broken. We let the world be quiet. The young man returns, brushing snow from his robe. Some say winter kills, he says, sitting near the fire. But I think it heals. It makes us slow down long enough to listen. The old man nods. That is its gift. The cold cleanses not just the land, but the heart. Fear fades when you see that the wind is not your enemy, it is your teacher. The woman hums softly, stirring the pot. The child, curled in furs again, watches the smoke climb through the vent. It's going home, she says dreamily. Yes, her mother answers. Even the smoke is not afraid. The old man smiles. Nothing born of this land fears what it is made from. You look up toward the smoke hole, the ring of blue sky visible through the haze. Outside, the cold gleams white and merciless, yet somehow it no longer feels distant. You can sense the connection, the cycle of fire and snow, wind and breath, warmth and silence. It's all one motion, one life. The fire flickers softly, its heat steady. The old man leans closer, his voice low. Fear comes from forgetting your place. When you remember that you belong to the same world that freezes your face and warms your hands, there is no fear left, only balance. The woman ladles broth into small bowls. The steam rises in delicate ribbons. You take one, feeling its heat spread through your fingers. The first sip burns your tongue slightly, but it's sweet, rich with fat, root and smoke. It tastes like survival, like gratitude. The child eats quietly, eyes half closed with contentment. The young man takes his bowl and sits near the entrance, watching the light shift on the snow. The old man finishes his portion, sets the bowl aside, and exhales deeply. The storm will return, he says calmly. They always do. But when it comes, we will be ready. Not because we are strong, but because we remember. He looks at you and smiles. This is winter without fear, not a season to be endured, but a companion to be understood. You feel the warmth of the fire, the soft breath of the teepee, the faint vibration of life moving through every surface. Outside, the frozen world waits, vast and serene. But inside, you feel no dread, only peace. The child drifts into sleep, her small face lit by the glow of the coals. The woman hums one more song, low and endless, like the memory of wind through grass. You close your eyes, breathing in the scent of sage and smoke. Winter hums softly beyond the hides, patient, eternal, and, for those who listen, merciful. The days grow longer. The air begins to soften. You feel it first not in the warmth of the sun, but in the quality of its light, less pale, more golden, brushing the snow with promise instead of indifference. The wind, once sharp enough to flay the skin, now carries a scent of wet earth and thawing grass. Even the snow itself begins to sigh, sinking under its own weight, melting quietly into memory. One morning, you wake to the sound of dripping. It's a fragile sound at first, a faint tap from the eaves of the teepee, like rain hesitating to fall. But it multiplies, spreading across camp, 1,000 tiny heartbeats of water returning to the earth. The old man smiles when he hears it. "The white blanket loosens," he says. "Soon we will walk again." The young man laughs, stretching his arms. "And sleep on new ground." The woman begins to tidy the lodge with deliberate care, wiping soot from the poles, rolling stray hides, gathering the remnants of herbs and ash. There's reverence in the motion, as if she's tending to something sacred. "The lodge must be clean before it rests," she says softly. You realize then, they are preparing to move. The air inside feels different now, filled not just with warmth but anticipation. Every gesture seems to hum with quiet readiness. The fire still burns, but smaller, content to fade. The stones are cool now, their long vigil over. The teepee seems to know, as living things often do, that its time here is ending. The old man places his hand on one of the poles, pressing his palm flat against it. "We do not own our homes," he says. "We borrow them. When the wind changes, we listen. When the herds move, we follow. The lodge comes with us, because it was born to travel." You look up. The poles rise in perfect symmetry around you, 12, maybe 15, each smoothed by years of use. The hides stretch over them like skin over ribs, the entire structure pulsing with quiet balance. It's hard to imagine it taken apart, but the old man sees the thought in your face and smiles. "It can stand in a storm," he says, "and come down in minutes." The young man begins to untie the cords along the base, loosening them where snow has frozen them in place. The woman rolls the sleeping furs, tying them with sinew ropes. The child follows, gathering small objects, carved toys, stones from the river, a feather she's kept for luck. Each item goes into a small leather pouch, her own piece of the world to carry. You join them, helping where you can. The young man shows you how to release the ropes near the doorway, how to fold the hide without tearing, how to pull the poles free in a slow spiral. The teepee doesn't resist, it yields, graceful even in its disassembly. One by one, the poles come down, crossing each other like fingers in prayer. The hides roll neatly into long bundles, soft and warm to the touch. The smoke hole closes last, the sky widening above it. You feel the sudden emptiness of space where a home once stood. The old man watches quietly as the lodge becomes a memory of itself. "The land remembers where we've been," he says. "When the grass grows again, it will grow stronger here, because we gave back our warmth." He gestures toward the melted circle of snow, the dark earth revealed beneath. "Every camp leaves a heartbeat behind. Around you, the rest of the village moves in the same rhythm. Teepees collapsing, fires being banked, bundles forming like cocoons. The air is alive with purpose, the sound of poles clattering, the creak of leather, the murmur of voices. Dogs weave between people, tails high, sensing the excitement. The child tugs your sleeve and points. A group of ponies waits at the camp's edge, their breath rising in slow puffs, their eyes bright. The young men begin to strap poles to their flanks, the bundles of hides lashed behind. Within minutes, each horse becomes part of a moving frame, a living extension of the homes they'll carry. The old man nods toward them. "The horse gave us wings," he says. "Before them, we moved slower, pulling the world behind us. Now the world moves with us." He laughs softly, a sound full of both wonder and memory. "The first time I saw a teepee carried that way, I thought the earth had learned to walk." The woman finishes packing, tying her last bundle with care. The young man checks each knot, each strap. The child climbs onto one of the travois, clutching her pouch. The old man watches them all with quiet pride. "This is the gift of the plains," he says. Nothing stays still long enough to die. Even our homes are travelers. You look around at the camp, now transformed. What had been a small city of smoke and hide has become an open field again, marked only by rings of ash and the dark circles of trampled snow. Yet nothing feels lost. The warmth of the night before still lingers in the air, the faint scent of sage and cedar woven into the wind. The young man hands you a coil of rope. Come, he says. If you're part of the fire, you're part of the journey. Together you walk with the others toward the horizon. The snow crunches beneath your feet, soft and wet now with the coming thaw. The wind is gentle, almost tender, brushing your face like an old friend. As the procession moves, the land seems to open before you. The sky stretches wide, the light shifting from silver to gold. The air carries the cry of distant birds returning north, the first sound of spring. The old man walks near the front, his robe trailing lightly over the snow. Each place we leave, he says, teaches us how to arrive somewhere new. He turns slightly, smiling. When you move often, you learn that nothing truly belongs to you. Not the land, not the lodge, not even the fire. You carry them for a while, and they carry you. You look behind you at the faint trail stretching across the plain, poles glinting in the sun, bundles swaying, children riding, dogs weaving. A caravan of breath and memory, guided not by conquest but by trust in the rhythm of the earth. The young man points toward the distant line of hills. We'll make camp near the stream tonight. The grass will show green first there. He looks back at the sky, at the circling hawks above. We follow signs, the birds, the clouds, the wind. The world tells us where to go if we listen. The child laughs as her pony steps through a patch of melting ice. The earth is laughing, she calls out. It's happy we're moving again. The old man chuckles. She is right. The land loves motion. Stillness is for stone. Hours pass in quiet rhythm, the soft creak of poles, the crunch of snow, the jingle of tack. The horizon shifts slowly, each step erasing what came before and writing something new. You begin to understand that this way of life is not restless, it's reverent. The people do not move to escape, they move to remain in tune with the seasons, to honor the cycles that sustain them. When the sun begins to lower, turning the snowfields pink, the old man raises his hand. Here, he says simply. The people stop. The young men begin unstrapping the poles, the women unroll the hides. The transformation happens as swiftly as it began, the tipi rising again, reborn from its own ashes. Poles cross, hides stretch, smoke holes open. Within moments, small fires flicker to life, sending up threads of smoke into the cooling air. You stand watching, amazed at how the same home that stood miles away now breathes here, unchanged yet entirely new. The old man joins you, his face glowing in the firelight. You see? He says. Home is not a place. It is the circle we make wherever we stand. He kneels and presses his palm into the earth. This ground will remember us, and when we return, it will welcome us again. The woman calls softly to him. The evening meal is ready, stew simmering over the fire, the scent of meat and herbs rising. The child waves, laughter ringing across the camp. The old man stands, stretching his arms to the wind. We are travelers, yes, he says, but we never wander. We move in rhythm with the heart of the world. You sit with them again as night gathers. The stars return, bright and familiar, scattered across the vast black sky. The smoke from the new fire twists upward, finding its path through the same constellations. The teepee breathes once more. The air inside warms. The family settles, the child drifts toward sleep. And outside, the world continues its endless motion, wind across grass, stars across sky, people across land. You realize then that nothing in this life is ever truly lost. It only moves, like smoke, like wind, like the people who follow both. And in that endless movement, there is peace. Night deepens once more. The stars bloom like frost across the sky, countless and close. The camp has settled again into its familiar rhythm, the soft hiss of wind brushing the hides, the muted crackle of fires, the distant murmur of laughter carried through the dark. You sit outside the teepee for a while, the air cool but kind. The ground beneath you is still damp from the thaw, releasing a faint, earthy scent. The snow has retreated into small, glittering patches that catch starlight like spilled embers. Somewhere beyond the horses' slow breathing, you can hear the steady hum of the plains, the vast, patient silence of the land itself. The old man joins you, moving quietly. He sits without a word, his robe drawn close, his gaze turned toward the horizon where the last light of sunset still lingers like a bruise. For a long time, neither of you speak. You simply listen, to the crack of the fire, to the soft sigh of the hides as they breathe with the wind, to the endless, subtle rhythm that has carried these people through every season since the first dawn. Finally, he breaks the silence. "Do you see how easily we came here?" he asks. "How the lodge rose again as if it had never fallen." You nod. "That is the way of things," he says. "To live without burden. To keep only what the body can carry and the heart can remember." He looks at the teepee behind you, glowing faintly from within. "People call this a simple life," he says, a faint smile touching his lips. "They do not understand that simplicity is the hardest thing to learn." The wind shifts, bringing with it the faint smell of sage from another fire nearby. He continues, "Every part of our home has a purpose. Nothing is wasted, nothing is without reason. The poles, the hides, the stones, they all speak to one another. They remind us that beauty is not in decoration, but in balance." You glance at the teepee again. In the firelight, its lines are flawless. The slope of the walls, the symmetry of the poles, the graceful spiral of smoke rising through the vent, it's both structure and spirit, art and necessity. The young man approaches, carrying a small bundle of wood. He kneels by the fire, feeding it slowly, each stick placed with care. "The lodge is perfect because it cannot be improved," he says softly. "It changes with the season, it breathes with the wind, it moves when we move. What more could we ask for?" The old man nods. "We live within wisdom that was built long before we were born. We only keep it alive." The woman steps from the teepee then, her shadow long and soft in the firelight. She's holding a piece of leather, freshly worked, stretched and smooth. With practiced hands she rubs fat into it, her fingers moving in slow circular motions. "Every task," she says, "has its rhythm. If you work too fast, the hide cracks. If you rush your fire, it dies. We do nothing in haste, because everything is connected." The child appears beside her, dragging a small bundle of sticks she's gathered from the riverbank. She places them proudly near the fire and grins up at her mother. "For tomorrow," she says. The woman laughs softly. "Yes, for tomorrow." The old man watches them both, eyes warm. "This is how we live," he says to you. "We do not rush toward tomorrow, but we prepare for it with care. That is wisdom. That is simplicity." He leans closer to the fire, tracing a small circle in the dirt. "The world beyond our plains has forgotten this. They build walls so thick that the wind cannot reach them. They fill their homes with things that do not speak. They chase comfort until they forget what it means to rest." The young man nods quietly. "A teepee never lies," he says. "If the wind changes, you know. If the fire smokes, you see. If you are careless, it reminds you. It keeps you honest." The woman adds another piece of wood to the flames. The light flares, catching the curve of her cheek, the fine strands of hair that move with the air. "Even the smallest flame can feed a night," she says. "That is enough." The fire hums with life. Sparks rise, drift upward, and vanish into the night. You find yourself thinking of everything you've seen, the grass mats, the heated stones, the way the hides breathe, the laughter of the child, the quiet songs before sleep. None of it is wasteful, none of it is extravagant, yet together it feels complete. Whole. The old man sees the thought in your face. We don't live with less because we must, he says. We live with less because the earth gives us exactly what we need, no more. To take more would be to forget gratitude. He picks up a small stone and holds it toward the fire. This stone, he says, once lay in a river. It was worn smooth by time. Now it warms our hands. When we leave, it will return to the earth and wait for another purpose. That is the way. Nothing ends, it only changes form. The child, now curled in her mother's lap, asks sleepily, Grandfather, will we always move? He smiles, setting the stone back by the fire. Always, he says, because the world moves, and we belong to it. She frowns, thoughtful. What if someone forgets? The old man's smile deepens. Then the world will remind them. The young man laughs softly. It always does. You look up at the sky, where the stars seem to tremble in the cold. They look close enough to touch, bright enough to guide any wanderer. You realize that these same stars have watched every journey, every campfire, every generation before this one. The same constellations that guided hunters, mothers, dreamers. The same light reflected in every pair of eyes that looked upward and whispered thanks. The old man follows your gaze. We do not need maps, he says. The stars are enough. They tell us where we are and who we are. When you live close to the earth, the sky becomes your teacher. The wind stirs, gentle and curious. The fire leans slightly, its smoke trailing east. The young man adjusts a flap of the tipi, and the air settles again. You feel it then, that perfect balance between motion and stillness, fire and air, earth and spirit. The woman hums softly, her voice barely above the crackle of the fire. The melody carries no words, just a rhythm that seems older than memory. The child drifts to sleep in her arms, the sound wrapping around her like a second blanket. The old man speaks again, his tone softer now, like a story told not to teach but to remember. When I was a boy, he says, I thought the world was full of noise. I wanted to chase every sound, see every horizon. But the older I grew, the more I understood, the world is quiet, and it waits for those who listen. He glances at you. Simplicity is not the absence of things. It is the presence of what matters. You think of the tipi again, its poles, its hides, its fire. Every piece chosen, every purpose clear. It holds no excess, no ornament, yet within it lives warmth, laughter, prayer, family, love. It holds enough. The young man pokes the fire, sending a spray of sparks upward. When the fire dies, he says, we carry its ashes to the next place. A part of each flame travels with us. That's how our warmth survives. The old man nods. And that, he says, is the heart of simplicity, to carry only the fire, not the walls. The night settles deeper around you. The stars wheel slowly overhead, patient and eternal. The camp quiets until only the wind remains, whispering gently through the grass. The woman rises and carries the sleeping child inside the teepee. The young man follows, his shadow long in the firelight. The old man remains beside you a moment longer, staring into the coals. Remember, he says softly, the world will give you everything if you learn how to want less. He stands then, straightening his robe, and disappears into the warm glow of the lodge. You sit alone for a while longer, watching the embers dim. The wind moves through the grass, whispering the same wisdom in a language older than speech. Simplicity, you realize, is not emptiness. It's knowing how to live so fully within what you have that nothing feels missing. The fire sighs. The stars drift. The earth breathes. And somewhere within that quiet balance, you feel what they have always known. That the greatest strength lies not in abundance, but in grace. The night stretches on, vast and deep, the stars burning with a kind of quiet authority that only the ancients ever truly understood. The fire before you has burned down to embers, glowing like a small constellation of its own. Every so often, a spark leaps skyward, joining its kin in the dark above. The teepee behind you hums faintly with life. Inside, the family sleeps, peaceful, steady, breathing in rhythm with the wind that moves softly across the plains. The hides rustle occasionally, shifting with the air's slow dance. From within, you can hear the faint sighs of rest, the murmured dream speech of the child, the deep and even breath of those who have long since learned that the world can be trusted. You remain outside for a while, listening. The silence is full here. Not empty, but immense, woven from layers of sound so delicate they almost vanish. The distant crack of ice breaking on the river, the low murmur of horses shifting in their sleep, the pulse of your own heartbeat echoing faintly in your ears. The cold touches your face, but it's gentle now, familiar. It no longer feels like an enemy to be endured, but a presence to be acknowledged, something that belongs. You draw your robe closer, and the warmth within it feels not like protection, but like gratitude. The old man's words return to you. The world will give you everything if you learn how to want less. You think of everything you've seen, the fire that breathes like a living heart, the floor woven from summer grass, the stones that hold heat through the night, the smoke that carries prayers to the sky. Every part of their world is alive, and every part knows its place. Nothing is wasted, nothing forgotten. A sound draws your attention, the flap of the teepee opening. The old man steps out, his form dark against the glow within. His robe is wrapped tightly around him, his hair silver in the starlight. He joins you by the dying fire, lowering himself to the ground with the slow grace of someone who has known many winters. For a while neither of you speak. You watch the embers together, breathing in the faint, sweet scent of smoke and pine. Finally, he says, "When the fire dies, the warmth does not vanish. It only hides." He gestures toward his chest. "It moves here," he says. "And here." He points to the teepee. "And there." He smiles faintly. "That is the warmth that remains." You watch as he stirs the coals with a stick, revealing their living core, a bright, molten red beneath the ash. The glow paints his face, the lines deepened by light, each crease a story written by wind and time. "When I was young," he continues, "I thought survival meant strength. That we lived because we fought harder than the cold, or hunted better than the wolves. But I learned. We live because we remember. Because we keep the fire alive, not in our homes, but in our hearts." He sits back, his gaze distant, following the smoke as it rises through the darkness. Every lodge, every family, every breath of warmth, each is a promise made to the earth. We will live in balance. We will not take more than we need. We will carry the fire forward. He looks at you now, his eyes bright with reflection. Do you see? The teepee, the fire, the warmth, they are not only tools. They are teachers. They remind us that life is not meant to conquer the world, but to join it. A gust of wind moves through camp, gentle but insistent. It lifts the ashes slightly, scattering a few glowing embers across the snow. Each one hisses softly, then fades. The old man nods toward them. "Even that," he says, "has meaning." The warmth goes into the ground. The snow carries it away. The water will take it to the rivers to the sea. And when the sun touches it again, it will return to us in rain. You look out across the plain. The horizon glows faintly now, the first pale hint of dawn stretching its fingers through the dark. The air changes with it, subtle but undeniable. The cold loses its edge. The world begins to breathe a little faster. The old man closes his eyes and whispers a few words in his language, soft, melodic, like a conversation with the coming light. When he opens them again, he smiles. Each day is the same lesson, taught again. The fire dies, the sun returns. One warmth follows another. He turns his face to the east. That is why our homes always face the sunrise. So that when we open the flap, the first thing we see is light. The fire of the world itself, reminding us we belong to it. You follow his gaze. The horizon blushes gold, the first rays spilling across the snow. The light touches the teepees, their curved walls glowing softly as if lit from within. The smoke rising from their peaks turns to silver in the dawn. It's a quiet miracle, simple, inevitable, sacred. The old man breathes deeply, filling his lungs with morning air. The people of the wind live by this, he says. The day will come when our lodges are gone, when the grass grows over the places we once stood. But the warmth, our way of life, will remain. He places his hand flat against the earth. Every time we built a fire, every time we sang before sleep, every time we gave thanks for the cold, we left a little heat behind. The land remembers it. The land carries it. He smiles. You've felt it too, haven't you? That calm, that peace, when the wind stops for a moment and the air feels alive? That is the warmth of those who came before. You nod, unable to speak. He chuckles quietly. Then you understand. The warmth that remains is not made of fire, it's made of belonging. He stands slowly, brushing snow from his robe. The light from the east grows stronger, gilding the edges of his silhouette. Around the camp, others begin to stir, shadows moving, quiet voices greeting the dawn. Horses snort, stretching. A child's laughter carries through the air. The old man watches them for a long moment, then says softly, Every morning is a beginning. Every home we build is both a shelter and a song. The world teaches us, and in return, we keep it alive. He gestures toward the camp, where smoke curls upward in gentle ribbons. See how the fires wake with the sun? That is life continuing. That is the earth breathing again through us. The young man emerges from the teepee, smiling as he squints at the light. The woman follows, carrying the child wrapped in a fur. The girl blinks at the brightness and grins, her laughter rising like a bird's call. The old man's eyes soften. That, he says, is why we endure. Not because we fight the cold, but because we find joy in it. The fire warms the body. Family warms the soul. The land warms the spirit. Together they make us whole. He turns to you, his face bathed in dawnlight. You came to see how we survive, he says. But survival is not the right word. We live. And that is enough. You watch as the sun finally crests the horizon, spilling its full light across the snow. The entire world gleams, each flake a tiny mirror catching fire. The teepees stand like golden cones, the smoke rising cleanly into the morning air. The scene is so peaceful, so absolute in its simplicity, that it feels like time itself has stopped to listen. The old man steps toward his lodge. Come, he says. The fire waits. Inside, the space feels the same as it always has, warm, familiar, breathing. The stones still hold their heat, the hides still carry the scent of earth and life. The family gathers close, greeting the day not with urgency, but with gratitude. The woman stirs the ashes, coaxing the coals back to flame. The fire wakes easily, eager to live again. Its light spreads across the walls, filling the teepee with motion, color, warmth. The child giggles as sparks rise through the smoke hole. The stars are going home, she says. The old man laughs softly. Yes. They've given us their light. Now they rest. He settles near the fire, hands outstretched toward its heat. His eyes close, and for a moment, his expression is utterly serene. And so, he whispers, the circle continues. You sit beside him, feeling the warmth on your skin, hearing the gentle rhythm of wind outside, the quiet crackle of flame, the soft murmur of life awakening all around. The night's lessons, of cold and endurance, of fire and faith, of balance and belonging, all gather here, in this single heartbeat of morning. The old man opens his eyes one last time and looks toward you. Now you know, he says. The warmth we carry does not die when the fire fades. It stays in the earth, in the air, in the hands that build and the hearts that remember. He smiles, a slow, knowing smile. That is the warmth that remains. Outside, the wind stirs again, not sharp this time, but soft, playful. It slips through the open flap, touching your face like a blessing before it moves on across the plains. You watch the smoke rise once more, tracing its path toward the sun. It twists, shimmers, disappears. But somehow, you know it's still there, riding the wind, carrying the memory of this moment to every corner of the sky. And as the day begins, you realize that the story of survival on these plains was never about enduring the cold. It was about learning how to share the fire. The old man leans back, sighs contentedly, and closes his eyes. The wind will come again, he says. And when it does, we'll light another fire. You smile, feeling the warmth against your palms, the steady rhythm of breath and flame and heart. Outside, the plains stretch endlessly, waiting for the next sunrise, the next journey, the next song. And somewhere in that vastness, unseen but certain, the warmth remains.